traveling from Hunter. Author, Battle Ring. Synopsis. Traveling to the world of Hunter and becoming a member of the family of assassins, Fischer took on the burden of being the head of a Zoldyck family. With the assistance of the system, he traveled through various worlds and started his own journey of becoming stronger. Chapter 1 Zoldyck. Tokyo Republic, Dentola region, Kukulu Mountain. In a large-scale deep mountain castle, in a secret room, a figure sits quietly, surrounded by a powerful aura, forming waves of wavy air waves that spread gently and evenly in all directions. At a certain moment, the door of the secret room was violently opened, and a figure rushed towards the figure with a shrill cry. Fischer, you can't leave your mother like your brother. The figure threw himself into the arms of the figure sitting in the secret room, crying loudly, with an extremely horrific voice, as if he had encountered some horrific and miserable experience. The figure sitting quietly in the secret room slowly opened his eyes, and let out a helpless sigh. Mom, what happened to Kid Killua? She has a slender body, silver white waist-length hair, and bangs on both sides of her forehead. Although she is immature, she is already very handsome and exquisite. Just a cursory glance can tell that she is only about 12 or 13 years old. A beautiful young girl. At this time, the young man's exquisite and handsome face showed a little helplessness. As for the reason, it was naturally because of the graceful and luxurious lady who was crying fiercely in his arms. The lady's name is Kikyo Zoldyck, the boy's mother, and the boy's name is Fischer Zoldyck, and the mother and son are members of the assassination family Zoldyck. Killua, that boy not only hurt your second brother, but also hurt me. If you don't believe me, look, my beautiful face has been destroyed. Immediately after Fischer's words, he raised his head, pointed at his own face, and complained to Fischer. I saw that Kikyo's face was covered with bandages at this time, leaving only his mouth and the place where he wore an electronic eye mask. That guy really ran out. Seeing Kikyo's appearance, Fischer was slightly taken aback, and then said in surprise, Fischer, Mom is hurt, you care about your heartless brother. Hearing that Fischer didn't care about himself, but cared about Killua's affairs, Kikyo suddenly became jealous. Okay, I see, I'll treat you right away. Seeing his mother's childlike appearance, Fischer shook his head in a funny way and said, then put his hands on the Kikyo's bandaged face. Emerald green light emerged from Fischer's hand, covering Kikyo's face. The wound under Kikyo's bandage gradually healed under the cover of emerald green light. Kikyo also showed a lazy expression of enjoyment. While showing an expression of enjoyment, Kikyo did not forget to speak. My Fischer's healing ability is really comfortable. Hearing this, Fischer's cheeks twitched, and he said suspiciously, Mom, you didn't hurt Killua because you wanted me to heal you. How is it possible? Kikyo, who was enjoying the pleasure of treatment, suddenly froze, and replied in a stiff tone. Seeing this, Fischer was 100% sure that his mother did it on purpose. If it wasn't intentional, how could Killua's three-legged cat Kung Fu hurt his mother? You know, the gap between N-people and non-people is very big, especially my mother. Kikyo is still a master of N-people. There is a huge difference between Killua and my mother. Among other things, the strength formed by Mother Kikyo's constant movement cannot be broken by Killua. N's defense cannot be broken. How could he hurt Kikyo? The only possibility is that Kikyo deliberately removed the defense, and then deliberately ran over to him for treatment after being injured. With that in mind, Fischer couldn't help but sigh again. Does my mother have a tendency to be abused? No accidents. All the heads of the Zoldyck family have silver white hair, and only Zoldicks with silver white hair are eligible to inherit the position of head of the family. In the original book, Killua is the only person in the Zoldyck family with silver white hair, so the future head of the family falls on Killua. Therefore, everyone in the Zoldyck family has great expectations for Killua. Having great expectations for it will naturally put it under a lot of pressure. That's why Killua Zoldyck rebelled. However, with his own appearance, the head of the Zoldyck family has a choice, not the only one. And I said very early on that I can take over the position of the future head of the family, so that other people in the family will not put too much pressure on Killua. Just let Killua grow on its own, don't intervene at will, and don't put too much pressure on it. The rest of the family also agreed, especially my mother. After she said those words, she was so excited that she almost danced. He also expressed that he would not put too much pressure on Killua, and would not restrain Killua too much. Of course, the old brother Illumi is an exception. This guy, even after Fischer showed his will to take up the future of the Zoldyck family, he still didn't let Killua go, kept staring at Killua, and revealed to the family that two heirs would be better, and would not give up the shackles on Killua. Regarding this, the people in the family didn't say much, and let Illumi go. Anyway, as the eldest brother, Illumi will not really hurt Killua, at most he will flog Killua to become stronger in a perverted way. In this case, if Killua wants to go out for a walk, there is no reason for the mother to refuse. At most, she will tell Killua to be more careful in the outside world, and it is impossible to prevent Killua from leaving. But it actually happened, and Killua got hurt. It's impossible no matter how you think about it. The only possibility is that Kikyo did it on purpose. And looking at Kikyo's performance just now, The reason for his deliberation has been clearly revealed. Just look at the way Kikyo enjoys being treated by his healer. However, since my mother wants to treat herself, then treat her. It just so happens that I'm going out too. I'll watch over that guy Killua, and nothing will happen to him," Fischer said to his mother Kikyo after healed the wound on his mother's face and removed all the bandages. "Are you going out too?" "It's fine, as long as you don't meet top 10 people. Then I'll leave Killua to you." Kikyo, who was stroking his increasingly radiant and supple cheeks, was taken aback when he heard Fischer's words, and then said with a smile. After finishing speaking, Kikyo left the secret room with brisk steps, coming and going in a hurry, as if the cry just now did not exist at all. In fact, Fischer also knew why Mom did it on purpose. Because Fischer's treatment can not only treat wounds, but also make the skin of the treated area better, more radiant and supple after treatment. However, this must be the result of being treated under the condition of injury. "Sad, I've stayed at home for so long, so I'll go out for a walk next." After all, the plot has begun. "Traveler, Fischer Zoldyck joins!" Chapter 2 Salted Fish Golden Finger. HunterxHunter World, the world Fischer is in now. Not long after traveling to this world, Fischer already knew what kind of world he was in. And his new identity, Fischer Zoldyck, is the third son of the HunterxHunter world assassination family Zoldyck family, and is the brother of Killua Zoldyck, one of the two protagonists, 1 year older than Killua Zoldyck. Like Killua, Fischer is also silver-haired and one of the heirs to the head of the Zoldyck family. However, knowing that Killua's character doesn't like to be restrained and doesn't like to follow the path arranged by the family members, Fischer made it clear to Silver Zoldyck and Gino Zoldyck a long time ago that he will inherit the position of the family patriarch in the future. Tell Silver and Gino not to force Killua, let Killua do what he likes to do. Of course, if Killua changes his mind in the future and wants to be the head of the Zoldyck family, Fischer doesn't mind giving him the position. For Fischer, being the Zoldyck patriarch makes no difference. Being the patriarch of the Zoldyck family doesn't come with any added responsibilities. After all, the Zoldyck family is full of talents and powerful. Even if they become the patriarch of the family, it will not add too much burden to themselves. At most, the family should be put first in some major matters, and the interests of the family should be the main priority when making decisions. Other than that, there are no major issues. As a time traveler, Fischer is naturally no different from other time travelers. Fischer, who came to this world, also has the necessary golden finger for a traveler, called the system. It's just that Fischer's system is a bit cheating. No, it should be said to be random. Fischer's system is called the random check-in system. What happens in this system depends on fate, and Fischer has no way of knowing the rules of this system. Literally, Fischer's system is a check-in system, and how to trigger the check-in is a matter of chance. When will the sign-in be triggered? Fischer doesn't know, and Fischer doesn't have any rules. At least Fischer has only triggered 2 check-ins since he was born. The first time was when the Fischer full moon, the system was activated, triggering the first check-in. Checking in for the first time, Fischer got a reward. Grace, God's favor in Dungeon Encounter World. The grace of God can double Fischer's efforts and give back to Fischer. With the grace of God, the improvement of Fischer's strength can be said to be twice the result with half the effort. Most of the effects of a person's practice becoming stronger cannot be maximized. It's as if you have put in 10 times as much effort in cultivation, but the harvest is only about 6 or 7 levels. Some with poor qualifications even have only 3 or 4 floors, or even 2 or 3 floors. And with the grace of God, Fischer can 100% turn hard work into harvest. However, there is no God for the favor of God that Fischer signed. The source of all favor is Fischer himself. Fischer can update the favorability value at any time by himself, and will not be subject to God. The second trigger check-in was when Fischer was 8 years old. Knowing the essence of this world, Fischer asked his father Silver to teach him how to practice, and after his own physique reached a certain level and could bear the practice of Fischer's aptitude is very strong, and he did not use N's method of using technology to stimulate him. He cultivated N under Silver's teaching in just 1 month. And the second trigger check-in is when Fischer cultivated N. The second time the check-in is triggered, Fischer gains a secondary ability. Its name is tenfold amplification. With this ability, Fischer can obtain 10 times the effect every time he practices. That is to say, 1 year of practice can obtain 10 years of practice effect. And it has been more than 5 years since the ability to obtain a tenfold increase. 5+ years was indeed 5 years in the others, but 50+ years in the case of Fischer. In other words, Fischer's current practice is equal to 50 years of practice. With strong talent and 50 years of practice, Fischer's mind energy is no weaker than Silver's. It can already be compared with Grandpa Gino. Except for Grandfather Gino and Great-Grandfather Major, no one in the Zoldyck family can compare with Fischer in terms of the total amount of N-chi. If it wasn't for the fact that he was not familiar with N when he started practicing, and he was too young and his body hadn't matured yet, the success of his practice in the first half a year was not ideal. Fischer's current N-chi cultivation is absolutely more than Grandpa Jano. Although the Nian-chi cultivation base is strong, Fischer still cannot compare with his father Silver in terms of strength. After all, Fischer does not have Silver's rich combat experience and powerful combat skills honed in battle. Although Fischer has accepted assassination missions in the past few years, he has not had many opportunities to confront N, and he has not been able to accumulate too much combat experience, nor can he hone too much combat skills. By the way, Fischer is now the fourth member of the Zoldyck family. Great-grandfather Maha, Grandpa Gino, and the fourth person besides Father Silver. Even big brother Illumi is no match for Fischer. Eldest brother Illumi's combat experience and skills are also better than Fischer's, but Fischer's thoughts are too strong to resist. No matter how rich your combat experience is and how amazing your combat skills are, it will be of no avail if you cannot break through Fischer's mind energy defense. In this regard, the Chimeric Ant army leaders in the Ant chapter performed very well, making the terrifying defense caused by the huge mind energy powerfully performed. Catwoman Nefabit was sent flying so far away by Netero, the president of the Hunter Association, but she was unscathed. The Ant King Maroom has been beaten by Netero for so long, but there are only some minor injuries. The reason is that the Ant King Maroom's N is too strong and too large, resulting in its strong defense. Even N at the level of the president cannot cause serious injuries to him. In the end, even the last zero style of the 100 style Avalokite Zvara was used, but it only caused some damage to the Ant King's body surface. Fischer Zoldyck LV.5 Strength, SS 1068 Durable, SS 1089 Smart, SS 1078 Agility, SS 1035 Magic, SS 1086 Development Ability, Life, A. Swordsman, B. Killer, C. Magic Guide, D. Magic Blink, Instantly Move. You can move to the marked place without chanting, and consume a lot of magic power. Skill, N. The ability to manipulate life energy. Freely manipulate the life energy emitted from the body to form a powerful ability. This is Fischer's current favorability value. The magic flicker is obtained by Fischer under some special circumstances, and the N in the skill is naturally then learned by Fischer. As for the tenfold increase in Fischer's second sign-in ability, it didn't appear here. Chapter 3, The Family That Births a Monster. In addition to the record of the manifestation of God's grace, there is another record of Fischer's performance. That is the properties panel of the system. The property panel of the system is too simple compared with that of God's grace. The property panel of the system only records the abilities possessed by Fischer, and nothing else. Host, Fischer Zoldyck. Abilities, Conjurin, Thunder, Conjurin, Life, Magic, Blink, God's Grace, Tenfold Amplification. That's what Fischer is capable of. The panel is very simple. Fischer's N system is Conjurer, and most Zoldyck family heads are Conjurin. Only great-grandfather Mihail is not. And Fischer, like Killua, began to receive training from the Zoldyck family at a very young age, and his body also acquired electrical resistance. After Fischer learned N, Fischer directly developed Traden, who is both offensive and defensive. In addition, Fischer has also developed the Conjurin of the healing department. Fischer itself does not have the characteristics to develop N of the healing system. After all, Fischer's mind energy does not contain this healing attribute. It is difficult to develop an of healing attribute, but Fischer has the grace of God. Exist. Every time God's grace is upgraded, the host will gain a development ability. And when Fischer's God's grace was upgraded to LV.2, Fischer gained the first development ability, Life. With this ability to develop, the life energy of Fischer will continue to increase as the physique becomes stronger. In 5 years, Fischer's life development ability has been raised to level A, which makes Fischer's life energy very terrifying. Similar to the fairy body of the first generation of Hokage. In Hokage, it has an extremely huge vitality, and precisely because of this huge life force, Fischer easily developed the healing system using life force transformation. That is the healing ability that Fischer used on his mother Kikyo before. Moreover, the extremely powerful life energy coupled with his own talent and the tenfold increase ability obtained by system sign-in. 3 reasons have caused Fischer to be only 12 or 13 years old, and already has a power that far surpasses that of his father Silver for decades. Result of practice. Back in the bedroom, after washing up in the bathroom in the bedroom, Fischer tidied up briefly, and then started to leave Kukulu Mountain to look for Killua. It was said to clean up, but it was nothing more than a bank guard and a skateboard, but nothing else. Are you going to find Killua? Fischer was stopped as soon as he reached the gate of the castle. In the corridor on the 2nd floor, Silver, the head of the Zoldyck family generation and the father of Fischer's life, was putting one hand on the fence at this moment, looking at Fischer calmly. Well, go see Killua and take part in this hunter trial. With the hunter license, many tasks of the family will be very convenient. Fischer looked up and said with a faint smile, "Yeah, let's go then. Keep an eye on Killua, don't let that kid get into trouble." Silver nodded slightly with his expressionless face, and then urged. Although Fischer has shown that he will bear the burden of the family's future, the Zoldyck family still attaches great importance to the silver-haired people. This is known from the fact that Illumi participated in the hunter experiment immediately after Killua left home in the original book. Of course, There are also reasons why Illumi itself needs a hunter license. As Fischer said, with the hunter license, the assassination mission of the Zoldyck family will be more convenient. And if Killua in the original book hadn't made an agreement with Papa Silver before leaving again, it is estimated that Papa Silver would send someone to guard Killua in secret. The reason why she didn't secretly send someone to guard her was because Silver knew that Killua had grown up, had her own thoughts and will, and had her own subjective consciousness, so she wouldn't be influenced by the family members. Moreover, Silver also noticed that Killua has already had preliminary contact with Illumi's hair, and knows some truths about this world. So Silver is going to let Killua experience outside and let Killua grow outside. As for worrying that Killua wouldn't return to the Zoldyck family again, Silver wasn't worried at all. As the head of the Zoldyck family, Silver has a very rich experience and knows the situation in this world. He is very clear and confident. No matter how Killua changes, he will eventually see everything in the world for various reasons and return to Zoldyck family. All in all, Silver still cares about Killua even though Fischer is already the future head of the family. I see. Don't worry, that kid will be fine. Fischer nodded and assured, then turned and walked outside. In the corridor on the second floor, Silver quietly watched Fischer's back going away, and remained silent. After a while, Silver spoke. It really is a terrifying monster that was born. Somehow scarier than Luca. However, there is a difference between the two. Fischer poses no danger to the Zoldyck family and only enhances the Zoldyck family's strength. And Luca murmured. Silver gradually stepped into the darkness. On the other side, after leaving Kukalu Mountain, Fischer went directly to the airport, boarded the airship of the Republic of Batokia, and headed for this year's Hunter test site. Although it has been more than 10 years since he came to this world, Fischer still has a fresh memory of HunterxHunter. Fischer knew the first test site of Hunter's experiment, and he knew the code. As long as you find a place, you can directly enter the test site without a guide. After a day's flight, Fischer arrived at the city where the first Hunter test site was located, and entered the Hunter test site using a secret code. Chapter 4 Killua, Illumi, picking up things. In the huge and spacious underground space, hundreds of elites from all over the world gather here. Although the number of people is huge, they are not noisy, and there is no communication with each other. On the contrary, their eyes are full of vigilance. No wonder those who came to take part in the Hunter trial reacted so well. After all, being able to come here means being a competitor in the experiment. It would be strange to communicate in such a situation. Of course, in this situation, some companions who were already acquainted with each other would naturally be excluded. At the same time, some people with ulterior motives were also shuttling through the crowd. For example, Tunpa, a veteran of the Hunter experiment, is constantly shuttling through the crowd, looking for targets that can be attacked. The arrival of Fischer did not cause much movement. The candidates for the Hunter test just glanced at it casually and then turned their eyes away again. However, after seeing Fischer's appearance, a certain little guy tiptoed around, carefully trying to hide in the crowd, almost chanting, "You can't see me, you can't see me." Quite funny. However, Fischer would not turn a blind eye and just walked over. This guy also noticed that Fischer saw him, and immediately stopped tiptoeing, and directly used assassination steps, trying to quickly disappear into the crowd. However, as soon as the steps moved and after images appeared, Fischer had already come to his side and directly picked up his back collar. "Ahaha, brother, you're here." Killua, who was pinched by the back of Faith's neck, stretched out his hand and greeted Fischer with a dry smile. "That's right, the guy who wants to hide like a mouse when it sees a cat when it sees Fischer is Killua, the number 2 man in this world." "You are so brave, you dare to hurt my mother." Fischer narrowed his eyes and said flatly, "Damn, she slandered me, Mom slandered me. I just wanted to escape, but my mother ran into me. Otherwise, with my strength, how could I hurt my mother?" Hearing Fischer's words, Killua stopped doing it immediately, not afraid of Fischer, and directly avenged himself, with a deep sense of grievance in his words. In this life, with the existence of Fischer, he would instill some truths in Killua from time to time. Killua is not a fool who knows nothing, and he still has some knowledge of how much he has. Killua knows that his strength is indeed very strong in the outside world, and he has few opponents. The tasks he received were all controlled by the Zoldyck family, and he did not meet them. But in the Zoldyck family, their own strength is the kung fu of some 3-legged cats. Not to mention hurting my mother. If my mother really did something to me, I would be rubbed on the ground every minute. "I heard that you also injured the second child?" Fischer didn't care about this, and continued to ask with a smile. "Hey, the second brother is not very capable, and he still wants to stop me, so I will give him a good beating." As soon as Killua talked about the jokes about the second child in the family, Killua immediately turned into a cat face, extremely excited. In the Zoldyck family, the second child, Mikai, is the one he can bully. Although that guy is a technical genius and ranks first in family assassination missions, he doesn't have much strength himself. As for Kaluto, who is younger than him, it is naturally impossible for him to bully him because he is an older brother. Not to mention, this guy Kaluto still admires himself, which is even more impossible. Go back later and apologize. Did you hear me? Fischer stared and warned as a chestnut landed on Killua's head. Huh, bro? Didn't you come to take me back? Killua didn't care about Fischer's shock, but was surprised by what Fischer meant. Why should I take you back? Since you want to venture out, why should I stop you? Fischer rolled his eyes, speechless. He took the initiative to take the position of the head of the family, and relieved Killua of the burden that might have arisen on him. Everyone in the family knew about it, but Killua himself did not know. Oh, and Aluka, the little guy doesn't know either. Okay, have fun by yourself. I saw an acquaintance. Go and have a look. Immediately, Fischer turned his gaze to another direction, waved his hand casually, and then stepped out, walking in that direction. Brother, this guy is really different from the rest of the family. Looking at the back of Fischer leaving, Killua felt slightly emotional. Among the members of the family, only Fischer himself can communicate normally. Although he can also communicate with other family members, he cannot do this at all. Shaking his head faintly, Killua began to wander around with the skateboard in his hands. Now that he knew that Fischer didn't come here to take him back on purpose, Killua was naturally relieved, and he didn't have any worries in his heart. On the other side, after a brief farewell to Killua, Fischer walked straight towards the direction where his gaze was just now. At the end of Fischer's gaze, a strange-looking guy was standing quietly. A man with a blue mohawk, an ugly face, nails all over his face, purple skin, and long purple nails on his fingers. Jita-Laiku, Illumi's Zoldyck uses a pin to disguise his identity. Illumi, why are you here? Fischer asked quietly after coming to Illumi's side. Although he knew that Illumi was here to test for the hunter license, Fischer still asked. Come to take the hunter's license test, and take Killua back. By the way. Although his face was livid and stiff, this did not prevent Illumi from speaking. I said can't you give Killua a little space? I have already given in and let you insert a chanting needle in Killua's forehead. You are still so worried. Regarding this, Fischer was a little speechless. In order to protect Killua, Illumi inserted a rosary on Killua's forehead. In addition to making Killua forget about Aluka, the other purpose is to use the rosary to influence Killua so that Killua can retreat in time when encountering an invincible enemy, instead of desperately, so as to protect Killua's life. Illumi didn't respond to Fischer's words and remained silent. Seeing this, Fischer shook his head, didn't speak anymore, just found a direction, and prepared to lean against the wall to practice waiting for the examiner's arrival. However, as soon as he turned around, Fischer frowned, his figure flickered, and a cold light flew from the place in front of Fischer, and fell fiercely on a wall not far away. Dodging the sudden onslaught, Fischer looked over. Hisoka, do you want to make trouble? Looking at the figure slowly approaching not far away, Fischer raised his eyebrows and asked with an unkind expression. Chapter 5 Hisoka struck by lightning. That's right, this sudden attack was Hisoka, the famous magician killer. At this time, the magician killer was walking towards Fischer with an excited face. His steps were very graceful, and the poker cards in his hand were spinning as fast as juggling. I didn't expect to come across such a wonderful apple when I participated in the hunter experiment. It's a green apple that has gradually matured. It's really troublesome to be targeted by this pervert. Although he complained inwardly, Fischer's action towards Hisoka would not be treated as if it hadn't happened. Electric arcs were slowly entwined all over his body, and Fischer's expression gradually calmed down. Seeing this, Illumi on the side flashed his figure and quickly left here. When he noticed the change in Fischer's expression, Illumi knew that Fischer was serious. Fischer usually treats people with a calm expression, occasionally showing a slight smile. But once Fischer's expression becomes deadpan, it means Fischer is angry. When fighting, it means Fischer is ready to get serious. Illumi is very aware of Fischer's power, and if he stays here, even at his current level, he will suffer indiscriminate disaster. So Illumi flashed immediately. A dead fellow is not a poor Taoist. Although the relationship with Hisoka is okay, but Hisoka does evil, so it has nothing to do with him. Also, he really wanted to see the scene where Hisoka was struck by lightning. It would definitely be very interesting. And the other people around also backed away in shock after seeing the electric arc appearing on Fischer's body, giving way to the surrounding space. Although I don't know why the electric arc suddenly appeared on Fischer's body, they are all elites among ordinary humans, and they can clearly sense the danger from Fischer's body. Naturally, he doesn't want to stay here. The place where Fischer was suddenly turned into a vacuum. Only Hisoka was not afraid of the electric arc on Fischer at all, and walked towards Fischer unhurriedly as usual with graceful steps. The iconic perverted smile on his face gradually dissipated, cool joyful emotion. Even if he retreated, candidates who go out tens or hundreds of meters can feel it, almost materialized. It's amazing, you have grown to this extent at your age. While walking, Hisoka chuckled, and the joy on his face became stronger and stronger. Facing Hisoka like this, Fischer is really helpless. For those who attacked him, even if Fischer would not kill them all, he would definitely seriously injure them and make them pay the price. But Hisoka is an exception. Because this guy is very perverted and very stubborn, once he is targeted, he will have to bear this guy's stalking next. Just like Sulfa, the leader of Phantom Troop. This guy, after knowing that Sulfa was sealed by Kurapika, In order to undo the seal on Leorio and fight Killua, he deliberately ran into the Island of Greed to find the Nemesis Master, and then he clung to Killua, vowing not give up. The only way to completely solve this trouble is to cut it off from the source. That is, directly addressing Hisoka. With Fischer's current strength, it is very difficult to solve Hisoka. After all, although Fischer's mind energy is very powerful, he has not yet reached the point where he can directly crush Hisoka with his huge mind energy, and in terms of combat experience, he can't compare to a battle-hardened veteran like Hisoka. This guy's combat awareness is too strong. He is almost a born fighter. Even Leorio defeated this guy after rigorous calculations, and he was not killed yet. He escaped the catastrophe by feigning death and killed 2 brigade members by him. Furthermore, Hisoka is the only friend of his elder brother Illumi in this life. Oh, the one and only. Based on this alone, Fischer felt that he should also show mercy to Hisoka. Well, just concoct a meal, don't kill him. Otherwise, the elder brother Illumi would really have no friends, and the one who was alone would have to die pitifully. It's best to let the relationship between the two of them develop. Although thousands of thoughts flashed in my mind, in reality they were just fleeting. With a thought, and with a slight flick of the finger, a thunderbolt with a thick human body split off Hisoka's head in an instant. The speed of lightning is so fast that even Hisoka, who was completely unprepared, did not escape the blow. Just resisted the thunder so abruptly. A violent explosion sounded, and Hisoka's location was shrouded in smoke. This guy Fischer's lightning power has become stronger again. Not far away, Illumi watched this scene. The corners of his eyes twitched slightly on his expressionless face, thinking silently in his heart. Fischer's lightning is more powerful and faster. When he played against Fischer before, Fischer's lightning was not so fast and strong. Before he was in the round state, he could still detect the lightning attack and dodge it. Even if he resisted hard, as long as he practiced well in Jian, he could resist it. But this time, he estimated that even if he noticed it, he would be very embarrassed if he wanted to escape. If you resist stubbornly, you will probably suffer a lot of injuries. Monster, Illumi said calmly with a blank face. Illumi felt that their Zoldyck family was the family that gave birth to monsters. Both Luca and Fischer are monsters among monsters. Of course, he was no monster himself. When he was 13 years old, N had just stepped into the ranks of masters, far from being able to compare with Fischer. If Fischer's current N power is 10, then his N's power at the age of 13 should be only 1, or even less than 1. Just when Illumi was thinking about the gap between himself and Fischer again, the smoke covering Hisoka's body had already dissipated, and seeing Hisoka's current appearance, Illumi's face froze stopped, almost didn't laugh out. However, he is professionally trained, and he will never laugh. Poof! I'm sorry, I really can't help it. Covering his face with his hands, Illumi's eyes were still dull, but the corners of his mouth covered by his big hands were bent, and his shoulders trembled slightly. I saw that Hisoka's soft hair, which was like a hedgehog, was gone, and replaced by an afro. Standing in a deep pit, Hisoka's white and tender face was also covered with burnt ashes. For the sake of you being his friend, that's it this time, don't bother me. The attack with half power fell on Hisoka, and Fischer achieved the goal of deterrence. As for why he knew that he had achieved his goal, he knew it by looking at Hisoka's fearful eyes. Out of N mode, Fischer turned and walked towards the crowd. It's amazing. Not far away, Killua, who watched Fischer walking towards him, also recovered from the shock at this time, and couldn't help shouting. Chapter 6 Long Lost Check-in. Looking at the back of Fischer going away, the afro Hisoka's complexion is uncertain. Although he could feel that Fischer had some strength before, he didn't expect that Fischer's strength was so strong, so he capsized directly in the gutter. Immediately, Hisoka's eyes fell on Illumi, who was covering his mouth in the distance, his body trembling slightly, showing displeasure. A few poker cards suddenly appeared in his hand, and Hisoka threw it directly at Illumi. Even though he was far away, Illumi still suffered an indiscriminate disaster and was regarded by Hisoka as an object to vent his anger. Facing Hisoka's attack, Illumi naturally couldn't sit still, and the two immediately started fighting. Several candidates who couldn't dodge were directly affected by the attack of the two, which affected Caillou and left their lives here. The actions of the two directly attracted the attention of the past. Only a few candidates still focused on Fischer, especially Killua, with starry eyes, and Tunpa, the rookie killer who was originally aimed at rookies, was trembling even more at this time. Brother, what kind of power do you have? I've never seen it before. Seeing Fischer coming in front of him, Killua was very excited and asked impatiently. Ordinary people cannot see the existence of Nian Chi, but the developed N can see it, just like the clone developed by Huashidoro in the Sky Arena. Even without N, the lightning that Fischer released was witnessed by all the candidates present. Killua is no exception. He knew that his elder brother was very strong, but he never thought that his elder brother could actually discharge electricity, and it was so powerful that it directly blasted the ground into such a big hole. Just looking from a distance, Killua knew how big the pit Hisoka was standing in was at least tens of square meters in area. It was the first time he had discovered that humans could actually drive thunder and lightning, which made him feel as if the door to a new world had been opened, and his thirst for knowledge burst instantly. The candidates who were paying attention to Fischer all around raised their ears after hearing Killua's question, wanting to hear Fischer's answer. This is a good opportunity to master powerful supernatural abilities, so don't just miss it. Unfortunately, however, they were not lucky enough to get this opportunity. This isn't. Do you want to learn? Fischer said with a faint smile. Fischer naturally wouldn't hide Killua's curiosity about N. Furthermore, it's time for Killua to get in touch with N, and his physique has reached the Zoldyck family's requirements for silver-haired people. The head of the Zoldyck family needs to lay the foundation when he was young, and he will be allowed to contact N only after he has cultivated his physique to a certain level. Therefore, the Zoldyck family will not allow the successor head of the Zoldyck family to contact N until this requirement is met. As for other clansmen, there is no such rule. It is also because Fischer knew of the existence of N himself, and his father Silver and the others could not hide it from the beginning. Coupled with the existence of God's grace, Fischer's physique improved very quickly, and he already had Killua's current strength when he was 7 years old, so his father Silver taught Fischer. I said it myself, otherwise it would be really hard to explain why Kaluto's Zoldyck came into contact with N early, but Killua's Zoldyck, a family genius, has no concept of N at all. The existence of Lugia is also difficult to explain. Of course, I have to learn. Hearing Fischer's words, Killua nodded repeatedly. Well, now is not the time. I will teach you after the hunter experiment is over. Fischer nodded slightly, agreeing to Killua. The people around did not get what they wanted, and they were all extremely disappointed. Lost is lost. They dare not go to Fischer to ask for N's cultivation method. After all, with such a powerful ability, who doesn't hide it? The reason why the silver-haired kid was able to obtain it was not because the two were brothers. Brother, I didn't expect the Hisoka you hacked just now to be so powerful. After getting Fischer's reply, Killua got into the crowd and watched Hisoka and Jitarake fighting together. Killua was very surprised by Hisoka and Jitarake, who were so elusive and almost invisible during the battle. He knew that Hisoka was very powerful before, and he felt as if he was being targeted by a poisonous snake after he came to this examination room, and he was very afraid of the dangerous aura emanating from Hisoka. After seeing Hisoka being concocted by Fischer without warning, Killua thought he had made a mistake in his perception of Hisoka's breath. But now, Killua knew that her perception was not wrong. Hisoka's strength is really terrifying. Although Hisoka and Jitarake fought hand to hand and did not cause too much damage to the surrounding environment, but as a genius killer and an expert, Killua knew very well that Hisoka's strength was terrifying. That kind of speed, that kind of strong fighting consciousness. If he were to fight Hisoka, it is estimated that Hisoka would kill him in minutes. And the Jitarake who fought with Hisoka was evenly matched with Hisoka, showing no defeat at all. Killua also really understood why Fischer had always emphasized to him in the past that there are people beyond people, and there is a sky beyond the sky. There are really many powerful existences in the outside world. I just came to participate in a hunter test, and I met 2 such powerful masters. You will become so powerful in the future. No, even stronger, Fischer said with a light smile. He has great confidence in Killua's talent and knows that Killua can definitely surpass Hisoka and Illumi. After all, he is the male second in this world, as can be seen from the growth of Killua in the original book. Okay, Fischer, I'll go back with you after the hunter test, and then you must teach me N. Killua turned to Fischer with a little excitement after watching the battle on the field for a long time. Yes, I will teach you after the experiment. Fischer nodded lightly. Ding. It has been detected that the plot has started, and the sign-in has been triggered. Are you sure you want to sign in? Fischer's voice had just finished, but a system voice suddenly appeared in his mind. The plot has already started? Chapter 7 Heavenly Blade. The test begins. Hearing the words of the system, Fischer couldn't help but look at the direction of the elevator. I saw 3 figures of different heights standing at the door of the elevator at this time. These 3 figures are Gon, Leorio and Kurapika. What's the matter? What's the matter? Why are there so many people around there? The tallest figure, Leorio, who looked too anxious, was looking at the battlefield where Hisoka and Illumi were with one hand on his brow looking out. There are people fighting there. Kurapika, who was beside him, replied aloud. Although he didn't see it, Kurapika's keen intuition sensed that a certain battle was taking place there. Hey, Gon, what are you doing? At this time, the youngest of the trio and the protagonist of this world, J Freaks, ran towards the crowd without even saying a word. Seeing this, Leorio said, immediately shouted out, and then ran to follow. Kurapika followed closely behind. Watching this scene, Fischer withdrew his gaze and fell into deep thought. Sign-in with the fate. Why does it feel like it will be triggered when some special events happen? Is this considered a random signing? Even though he thought so, Fischer didn't think too much about it. Fischer is not someone who cuts corners, and it doesn't make sense to think too much about this kind of thing, because even if this condition is determined, the trigger condition cannot be created by itself, so it can only wait. To a certain extent, it is indeed random. Not paying attention to the 3 of Gon who ran to Killua not far away, Fischer sank his mind into the system in his mind. System, sign in. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining natural teeth. Natural teeth, the one in Sesshomaru's hand. Looking at the Tidal lying quietly in the system space, Fischer couldn't help being a little surprised and pleasantly surprised. As soon as he thought about it, Fischer knew that the sign-in reward he got this time was indeed the one he thought of. Natural teeth, the sword of heaven in the sword of the world's overbearing in Inuyasha. Natural teeth can connect the road between this world and the next world, kill monsters that do not belong to this world, and can also be used in reverse to send monsters from this world to the next world. At the same time, the dead can also be resurrected by beheading the messengers of the underworld. If it is executed in a real time, hundreds of lives can be saved with one swing of the knife. At the same time, there is also a mystery in Damshingyur. The broken moon of the underworld can cut through the space and create a passage to the underworld. The underworld will generate a huge suction force, and if it is cut by the waning moon of the underworld, it will be sucked into the underworld. However, the world I'm in now doesn't have a so-called underworld. Can the ability of natural teeth work? Looking at the natural teeth in the system space, Fischer thought. As soon as the idea came up, the system that has been very cold, salted fish, rarely gave an explanation. The ability to have natural teeth still works. As long as you wave it, you can rescue the dead who have just died. At the same time, you can also use Mingdawani Yupo, and what you draw will be a passage to the underworld. This underworld is connected to the world of Inuyasha. However, this powerful force needs to be developed by Fischer himself. The current natural teeth only have the basic power of natural teeth, which is the power to resurrect the dead. This power is also limited. Compassion. Without compassion, even if Fischer holds natural teeth, he cannot resurrect others. It's the same situation as Sesshomaru at the beginning. A heart of compassion? Do I have this kind of thing? After receiving the information given by the system, Fischer not only asked himself, although the previous life was ordinary, Fischer in this life has become a killer. Does he have a heart of compassion? Fischer didn't know. Forget it. I'll know if I have a chance to experiment. Fischer whispered silently, put away his thoughts, and put them outside again. As soon as he came back to his senses, Fischer found that Killua had run to the side of the three of Gun at some point, chatting and laughing. Seeing this scene, the corner of Fischer's mouth couldn't help twitching. This guy and Gun are really good friends of destiny. Not long after Gun arrived, the two hooked up, even earlier than in the original book. Shaking his head slightly, Fischer didn't care, and glanced around. While Fischer was thinking, the battle between Hisoka and Illumi was over. It's also normal, the two are friends to begin with. Even if they fight, it's impossible to really fight. At most they can exchange ideas. Coming? The message from Yuan let Fischer know that the mouthless monkey Sasi, the chief examiner of the first test, had come. Circle is also the application skill mastered by Killua, and it is an advanced application skill in the Nin system. Few people who are naughty can cultivate it, and even if they can cultivate it, the area of the circle is not large, because this application skill is a test of the controllability of the ninja. Moreover, the use of circle is also different. For example, Nobunaga in Phantom Troop, as a swordsman, he is auxiliary in the use of circle, with a radius of 4 meters around it as the center, which is the range of his weapon attack. Entering its circle means entering the range of his attack, and Nobunaga's swiftly drawn sword can easily cut the enemy in half. However, Grandpa Jinuo's circle tends to be perceptual, so the range is very wide, with a radius of about 300 meters. Fischer's round, like Grandpa Gino's, leans towards the sensory probing side. However, Fischer does not have the range of Grandpa Gino's circle. Fischer's circle is only about 250 meters. This is already the limit of Fischer's current stage. After all, Fischer's age is there. Even with the support of a tenfold increase, Fischer is very fast in the development of N, but he can't stand the blemish of age, and he can't compare with his grandfather Gino at all. It is estimated that if Killua is given another half a year, he should be able to surpass Grandpa Gino. Not much nonsense. In Fischer's circle, Sasi had already turned on the mechanism, appeared in front of many candidates holding a lantern, directly took over the test, and then took the lead in running. Fischer glanced at Killua and the others who started to run, and had no intention of going to join Killua, walking alone on a skateboard and slowly following behind several candidates. Chapter 8 Trouble. Not long after running with the chief examiner Sasi, Killua brought the three of Gun to Fischer's side. Brother, they are my new friends. Coming to Fischer, Killua introduced the three of Gun to Fischer. Fischer glanced at the three of them slightly unexpectedly, and nodded. Butterfly effect. At the very beginning, Killua should only communicate with Gun, but unexpectedly, because of himself, he actually had direct contact with all three of them. I'm J-Freaks, Killua's brother. Hello. I'm Leorio, Leorio Paradonite. I'm Kurapika. The three of them introduced themselves after Killua spoke. Fischer nodded lightly and introduced himself. For these three people, Fischer doesn't think much about the intersection. Of the three, Fischer has a good sense for Kurapika and Leorio. After all, in the original book, the performance of the two is very good. In contrast, J-Freaks is a bit embarrassing. Kurapika, who entrusts the hatred of the Kuruta tribe on her body, has a strong obsession with revenge, but she was able to give up the revenge at her fingertips for the sake of her friends. And Leorio cares about his friends from the beginning to the end. As long as Gon and the others need help, Leorio will help regardless of whether he can help or not when he knows it. Go with Gon and Kurapika to Kyokalu Mountain and bring Killua out. Yukisenshai helps Kurapika get revenge. After the Ant chapter, he is even more dissatisfied with what happened to Gon. After seeing Gon's father Jin, he ignores the gap between the two and directly he just punched Jin and knocked him out. To put it bluntly, it means not knowing the heights of the sky and the earth, but to put it nicely, it means emphasizing love and righteousness. It means that Jin has a good personality, but if you were at 12 earthly branches with a bad personality, you suddenly attacked him and gave him such a punch that your skull was blown off. It can be said that Leorio's actions are very dangerous. Both Kurapika and Leorio have very good personalities. In contrast, the protagonist J-Freaks is very hip. Although the talent is very good, sometimes he is very brainy and can think, but most of the time he is very willful and has no self-knowledge. Protagonist: this guy has died countless times. This guy is just as overreaching as Leorio. But Leorio is based on wanting to help his friends, while this guy is purely playing to death. Fighting against Hisoka in the Sky Arena. If Hisoka hadn't kept his hand and wanted to see how he grew up, he would have been killed long ago. Later, in the Island of Greed, the Heart of the Virgin had an attack, and instead of healing the injured Killua, he used the breath of countless archangels on the enemy. Instead of healing companions, heals the enemy instead. What kind of mother bitch operation is this? In the Ant chapter, after Kate's death, he was directly dazzled by hatred, and vented his own anger because of his own weakness on Killua, which made Killua feel sad secretly, and didn't really care about his friends at all. This guy is nowhere near Kurapika or Leorio. These points, no matter what, are the reasons why Fischer looks down on J. Compared with the protagonist, Fischer values Leorio and Kurapika more. At least the two become friends because they will give everything for their friends. Squeeze: Fischer, I heard from Killua, you released the lightning just now, how did you do it? After the introduction of both parties, Gon asked Fischer familiarly. Fischer glanced at him lightly, exerted a little force on his feet, and the skateboard rushed forward in an instant, completely ignoring Gon's intentions. Fischer's attitude immediately stopped the four of them, and they looked at Fischer's back in puzzlement. Killua, your brother hates me. The pure-minded Gon immediately sensed Fischer's attitude towards him, and was a little embarrassed. It's strange. Everyone in the family is abnormal, but Fischer is an exception. He is very normal. He usually treats his servants very gently. How could this be? Killua frowned slightly, puzzled. He is very clear about Fischer's character. He treats everyone very peacefully and treats everyone equally, without distinction between superiors and inferiors. It was the first time he had seen Fischer's attitude. Okay, let's keep running. Kurapika also had a strange expression on his face, but he still made a sound to relieve the awkward atmosphere, and reminded several people. On the other side, Fischer ran to the middle of the line. Really, why did Killua come here? It's better to communicate with them. Standing on the skateboard, Fischer muttered dissatisfied. Although he has good feelings for Kurapika and Leorio, it doesn't mean that Fischer wants to get to know them. After all, he is different from Killua. Killua wants to be free and walk in the light, but he is destined to become the killer of the Zoldyck family, the future successor of the Zoldyck family, and a figure in the dark. It is better for people in the dark world to try not to have friends, because they will be restrained by bonds. Leorio is alright. Once Kurapika's words become friends, then Fischer will naturally not ignore Kurapika's matter. Then it's time to face off with Phantom Troop. Although not afraid, it is still a bit troublesome to fight Phantom Troop. Speaking of Phantom Troop, Killua may also face them because of Kurapika. It's really troublesome. It seems that I will also go to Ukexen City at that time. Although I don't want to get involved with Phantom Troop because of being friends with Kurapika, but if Killua is involved with Phantom Troop, that's another matter. Well, speaking of it, it's a bit of a double standard. Speaking of it, I seem to have become like Illumi, becoming a Killua addict. However, it is not shabby to care about your younger brother. I'm really speechless. Thinking of this, Fischer couldn't help muttering, Hisoka, what do you want to do? Just after muttering, Fischer found that Hisoka appeared not far from him at some point, leaned towards him, and asked with a frown. Well, I apologize to you for what happened before. How about it? Do you want to find a chance to compete? Hisoka said with a smile. Fischer, I reject. Then I'm going to pester you. Chapter 9 Helping Leorio, Wetmele Wetlands. After the hunter experiment, go to the Sky Arena to fight, and don't pester me afterwards, Fischer said indifferently after glancing at Hisoka. Okay, so when is the time? Hisoka's eyes lit up when he heard that. Fischer's actions before had made him understand that Fischer didn't want to fight him, but just frightened him. Fischer's attack power is very powerful, far surpassing him. At the same time, he could also see that the power of Fischer's was much more powerful than just now. If Fischer really wanted to put him to death just now, given his unprepared situation just now, he would definitely be seriously injured, not just a slight injury like now. You must know that the power of N depends on the displayed energy of N person, and the person with a higher upper limit of displayed energy can release more thought energy, and the power will naturally be stronger. Hisoka could keenly feel that the displayed aura of N released by Fischer just now was already higher than him, and this displayed aura could continue to increase. If Fischer shot with all his strength when he was unprepared, that would be true. It's enough for him to suffer, and it's not surprising that his life is even in danger. He was really careless just now. However, so what? The battle between, unless it shows that the gap in energy is so huge that it forms a crushing situation, otherwise the battle between still depends on the ability, combat experience, and skills of N. Possess a huge potential energy and display energy, but have not developed their own, nor have strong fighting skills and rich experience, then they are just a kid holding a powerful weapon, with powerful destructive power but unable to hurt other people. He thinks that Hisoka has experienced hundreds of battles since his debut, and his fighting skills and fighting experience are impeccable. Even though Fischer's thoughts are huge, he is not afraid. Just now Fischer frightened him with a huge mind energy, trying to make him retreat, but he didn't want to taste the taste of Fischer, an apple that was young but already revealed a mature aura. Whether he couldn't stop it or the taste is like chewing wax. Well, maybe a month after Hunter's experiment. Fischer frowned slightly, and then gave an answer. Then I'll be waiting for your visit in the Sky Arena. Hisoka narrowed his eyes and licked his lips when he got the reply, and said abnormally. This made Fischer's hair stand on end, goosebumps rose, and he slowed down unconsciously, allowing the skateboard to move back slightly. Hisoka didn't care about this. He still squinted his eyes and smiled pervertedly, and because of the excitement in his heart, he unconsciously exuded a strong aura, which made the people around him terrified, and they all went desperately backed out around. In a blink of an eye, the place where Hisoka was located became a huge vacuum area, and only Hisoka was running there at a leisurely pace. This pervert, Fischer cursed inwardly, looking at Hisoka's pupils that were almost protruding under his squinted eyelids. This kind of demeanor can only be done by a pervert like Hisoka. Time passed bit by bit, and in a blink of an eye, 3 hours passed. Fischer still walked leisurely with a large group. Fischer. At this moment, a voice came from behind Fischer. Fischer turned his head slightly and looked over, only to see Kurapika and Leorio running not far behind. Kurapika's demeanor was calm, but Leorio was different. At this time, Leorio's face was covered with sweat, his face was extremely tired, and his steps were shaky. Even so, though, Leorio persevered. This guy is a purely ordinary person, at most physically stronger than normal people, and being able to run for more than 3 hours without falling behind is already very good. Looking at the two people behind him, Fischer raised his eyebrows slightly, and finally nodded his head as a response. Then, Fischer set his sights on Leorio. After a long silence, Fischer stretched out one foot from the skateboard and touched the ground, and with a little force on the other foot, he swung the skateboard towards Leorio. Wow! Leorio, who was extremely tired, saw a dark object flying towards his face in the blink of an eye, and immediately became flustered. However, at least the skateboard was caught. Here you are. Looking at the stunned Leorio, Fischer said lightly, and then his figure flashed, turning into an afterimage and flashing forward. Thank you, Fischer. The stupefied Leorio also reacted after hearing Fischer's voice, and quickly waved his hands to thank him loudly. He naturally knew what would happen to him with this skateboard. With the presence of the skateboard, he can almost minimize his physical loss. If he used 10 or more strength to run before, now with this skateboard, he only needs to use 1/10 of the strength to easily keep up with the pace of the large group. After thanking him, Leorio excitedly put the skateboard under his feet and started to slide. Killua's brother looks like a cold-faced and warm-hearted type, Kurapika said with a smile on the side. Ah, thank you so much. Leorio nodded repeatedly. For Leorio, although Fischer didn't want to have too much communication, he didn't mind helping. This guy has a good personality and is a good friend. Killua can also be helped in the future. If he falls down here, then Killua will lose a good friend who can be trusted with sincerity in the future. Now that Killua is ready to live free in the sun, Fischer doesn't mind helping out. Soon, the first test was over, and Fischer and others successfully arrived at the wetland and started the journey to the second test site. Wetmele Wetland. This is a very dangerous secret place, with a large number of monsters of different shapes, but these are nothing to Fischer. Masters can almost run amok here. Of course, it's just the periphery. Deeper, in the depths of the wetlands of Wemera, even a master of N can perish in it. That's what Papa Silver said. There are a large number of extremely powerful monsters in the depths of the Shimel wetland. Even the old man Silver dare not walk around in it. Entering there requires care and caution. Fischer had been there before, but he was not alone. He entered there under the leadership of his grandfather Gino. As for why he went there, it was naturally because of Fischer's divine grace. Although this thing can be improved by training, it is not as good as fighting. Although Fischer is strong in assassination, he can't help him in improving his favor. There are powerful monsters in the wetland, and Fischer will not let them go. On the periphery, Fischer made his own way, but when entering the depths, Fischer asked his grandfather Gino to bring him here. Because of this, Fischer's God's grace can be upgraded to level LV. 5, and each level is a limit upgrade, breaking the record. Although there are no dungeons in this world, there are various secret realms, and there are monsters in secret realms. Chapter 10. Arriving at the second test site. Demonic realms, secret realms. These are special areas in the world of HunterxHunter, and it is not an exaggeration to call them forbidden areas. Once ordinary people stray into these places, they are basically sentenced to death, unless there are naughty people following them. However, these places have already been marked by the local authorities, and they have been banned. Without a special identity, it is impossible for you to enter casually, not even close. Moreover, even people can only act in some peripheral areas of the secret realm. Going to some deep places is basically a narrow escape. Even masters are no exception. When Fischer came to the Wetmele wetland before, Grandpa Gino was staring at him the whole time. Grandpa Gino also followed when he was on the periphery, but he didn't follow closely. When entering the periphery, Fischer's strength was already very strong at that time, and God's grace reached LV.3, afterwards, it was upgraded to LV.4 on the periphery of the wetland, and then upgraded to LV.5 and the depths of the wetland under the leadership of Grandpa Gino. It can be said that Fischer has visited the entire Wetmele wetland, except for the deepest part, where Grandpa Gino dared not go. After that, Fischer did not come to the Wetmele wetland again, and it has been 2 years since then. No way, the Wetmele wetland is not a dungeon, and monsters cannot be produced continuously. The monsters in the Wetmele wetland cannot be regenerated after being killed. We can only rely on time to make the remaining weak monsters grow up. Candidates this time can be regarded as thanking Fischer. It can be said that Fischer's visit to Wetmele wetland 2 years ago directly hurt the vitality of Wetmele wetland, and the degree of danger was much lower. This is very good news for those candidates who do not know much about the wetland. However, although the depths of the Wetmele wetland are very dangerous, none of the monsters inside have ever left the Wetmele wetland. There has never been a single case since it was recorded. It seems that there is some invisible force that confines the monsters inside. Not paying attention to the others, Fischer calmly followed the examiner Sarsi, walking side by side. No matter how big Sat's strides were, Fischer followed closely beside him without falling behind. This made Sarsi couldn't help but take a second look. It's really a little monster. Seeing Fischer following on his right, Sarsi thought to himself. Sarsi knew very well how fast he was. When he saw Fischer following him, Sarsi intentionally threw Fischer away. But no matter how fast he accelerated, Fischer was able to stick to him tightly, and his expression was very relaxed. What surprised Sats even more was the way Fischer followed him. It's not like running at all. It's like walking. As soon as you take a step, you follow closely by your side. If this is the case, it should not be surprising to Saturday. After all, although there are few people who can do it, there are still some. Although it is very rare that Fischer can do it, it is not worth surprising Sarsi. What surprised Sats was Fischer's keen insight and control. Whether he accelerates or decelerates, Fischer follows closely, seamlessly, as if his speed has always been constant and has not changed. This is what surprised Sarsi. Once or twice was okay, but a dozen times, dozens of times, Fischer was able to accurately follow him, which was a bit scary. What's the matter, examiner? Seeing the surprised look on the mouthless monkey of Sarsi, Fischer asked lightly. It's nothing. Sarsi gave Fischer a meaningful look, and said indifferently, then withdrew his gaze, stopped competing with Fischer, and returned to the initial speed. Several hours passed, and Fischer finally arrived at the site of the second test, which was a very large manor. However, Sats and Fischer were the only ones who arrived at first. The others have not arrived yet. In this regard, Fischer also cannot help but sigh with emotion. The two of them left the other candidates a few blocks away, but these candidates finally arrived here. I have to say that the people who came to participate in the hunter test have 2 brushes. At least they are very strong in tracking. Boy, your strength is pretty good. The two of them stood in front of the manor and had nothing to do, and Sarsi, who had nothing to do, also started talking to Fischer. As an person, Sarsi naturally saw that Fischer is also in person. Although Fischer's body surface is not strong, but from the performance just now, Sarsi also knows that Fischer's strength is very strong. In this case, Fischer has a very high chance of becoming a professional hunter after passing the test. As long as he does not encounter some weird experiments, it is basically a certainty. So Sarsi didn't mind making new colleagues in advance. Your strength is not bad. You can be considered among them, Fischer said with a faint smile. As soon as these words came out, Satsuki's eyes twitched. This kid is so proud. He actually said that I was okay. Sarsi thought that his practice was not bad, but he didn't expect that it was not bad in exchange for one sentence. Sarsi, who was rendered speechless by Fischer's words, did not speak again. Soon, a new candidate arrived here, and it was Fischer's elder brother Illumi. After this guy arrived here, he nodded to Fischer and walked directly to the wall of the manor to lean against. Time passed bit by bit. Candidates arrived here one after another. Killua and others also came here. Following Sarsi's order, the first experiment came to an end completely, and Sarsi left here with enchanting steps. And not long after Sarsi left, when all the candidates were stunned, The gate of the manor slowly opened, revealing the situation inside. One small and one big, Menchi in cool clothes and brat with a huge body, a beautiful woman with a beast, and the examiner of the second test appeared in front of everyone. Candidates who successfully passed the first test, please enter. Welcome, I'm Menchi, the examiner for the second test. I'm Bahara. Seeing this, everyone walked in quickly, came to Menchi and Bahara, and waited quietly for Menchi and Bahara to explain the exam questions of the second test. But there is one exception. Chapter 11 Morse Code Language. The arrived old guy. Leaning against the wall and watching the people being played around by the May Hunter Menchi, Fischer yawned casually. According to Menchi's approach, it is impossible for anyone to pass the Hunter test this time. So Fischer never thought about participating in this experiment. Anyway, when the time comes, the old man from the Hunter Association will come and end it. At that time, just follow the old man Netero to the Toad Tiger Mountain to get the grape spider eggs, so there is no need to waste time here. D.A., D.A., D.A. A series of voices sounded beside Fischer, and the disguised Illumi also leaned against the wall with Fischer at some point. Next to Illumi was Hisoka. This guy was also leaning against the wall with one foot and leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Illumi didn't know why, so he stopped talking again. His mouth kept shaking up and down and making a series of clicking sounds. However, although he didn't speak, Fischer could hear what Illumi wanted to express. According to what Fischer said in his previous life, this guy was sending Morse code. This guy Illumi was asking why Fischer didn't go with the others to hunt down Boar-Nosed. Didn't you two go too? Fischer asked indifferently, while looking at Hisoka. D.A., D.A., D.A. Don't you want a hunter license? That guy Menchi's test questions are unreliable and unfair. Just wait. The old man from the association will definitely come and end it. Facing Illumi's question, Fischer replied flatly. After finishing speaking, Fischer stopped talking, closed his eyes and began to take a short rest. Although Fischer started to rest, Illumi and Hisoka did not. After listening to Fischer's explanation, the two were also relieved, and the anger in Hisoka's heart, which was originally hidden because of Menchi's willfulness, disappeared instantly. This guy squatted at this time, half squatting by the wall, half squinting, showing a perverted smile, looking at the many candidates in the courtyard as if he was watching a play, as if he was watching a monkey. Although Illumi didn't squat down, and his eyes were dull, but the corners of his mouth were trembling, it could be seen that this guy was also watching a show. This immediately made Menchi, the chief examiner, who was always nervous because Hisoka was exuding killing intent all the time, very upset. Originally, after seeing Fischer enter the manor, Menchi didn't pay attention to his test at all and ran to the wall to lean against and even closed his eyes. Menchi was a little angry, and Hisoka and others were even more angry with this look. This directly annoyed Menchi, and Menchi, who was calm at first, had his eyes blazing, and looked towards Fischer, gnashing his teeth, as if he wanted to beat Fischer up. Nima, my exam questions have been issued, but the three of you are indifferent, just watching the show and resting there, just don't give me face as an examiner! However, Hisoka was also there, so Menchi didn't really move, he could only watch with gritted teeth, unable to rage. As for Hisoka, Menchi really didn't want to do anything with him. The Gee's murderous aura was really terrifying. Although it is very vague, it is only in the eyes of ordinary people, and it is very clear to them who are also in. That kind of terrifying killing intent doesn't need to be thought about to be known by normal people. It is possible to have such killing intent only after killing people like hemp. Moreover, in her condensate, the thought energy entangled in Hisoka is also very quintessential and very powerful. These are the reasons why she doesn't want to provoke Hisoka. In contrast, although Fischer's body is also entangled with Nian Chi, it is very thin, like a newcomer who has just cultivated Nian Chi. In addition, Fischer has no killing intent on him, so Menchi is not afraid of Fischer, and even wants to beat Fischer up. From the beginning when Hisoka in the underground passage did not see the powerful mine energy on Fischer and started to attack Fischer, now he regards Fischer as Menchi who is a novice. Neither of them could see the strength of the Nchi on Fischer who was not in the fighting state. It can be seen how strong Fischer's control power is, so that the two masters couldn't see his Nchi cultivation. As the time passed bit by bit, the candidates sent the roasted porcupine-nosed wild pigs to Menchi and Bahara one by one. Bahara ate his mouth full of oil and kept passing it, while Menchi tasted it and typed it out. While crossing, he was still staring at Fischer. Candidates were continuously eliminated one by one, until the roast pig of the last candidate was put on the table. Still none of the candidates passed. This made Menchi's anger even stronger. He stood up directly from the sofa, gave a lecture to many candidates, and announced that no one passed the test this time. It belongs to venting the anger on Hisoka, Fischer and others to other candidates. And this also angered the candidates who were eliminated by Menchi. One of the wrestlers rushed towards Menchi impulsively, wanting to attack Menchi, but he was directly rode to the small towers on both sides of the door by Bahara. Up! It fell from above with a pop. This time, the angry candidates all died down, and they didn't dare to make any more noise. Seeing the changes in the expressions of the candidates, Menchi nodded in satisfaction, and then glanced again at Fischer, who was still closed, and Hisoka and Illumi, who were still watching the show, and the corners of their eyes twitched unconsciously. Do these three guys really want to pass the test? There is no intention of catching the wild boar with a big nose at all. And just when Menchi was annoyed, an old voice came down from the sky. Everyone's eyes were immediately attracted, and they looked at the sky one by one. I saw that a huge airship had already appeared in the sky at this time, and the sound came from there. At the same time, Fischer also opened his closed eyes. The old man from the Hunter Association is finally here. Looking up slightly, Fischer looked at the figure descending from the sky and thought silently. Boom! Exclamation mark. Chapter 12 Similar Worldview, Alternative Zoldyck. The grape spider eggs of Toad Tiger Mountain are indeed very delicious, and they are one of the most delicious delicacies Fischer has eaten since he came to this world. No wonder there is such a profession as food hunter in this world. At this time, Fischer has followed the Hunter Association's airship to Toad Tiger Mountain, and Fischer has already obtained the special grape spider eggs from Toad Tiger Mountain. Although he knew before that the grape spider eggs of Toad Tiger Mountain are very delicious and are called dream ingredients, but after tasting it, Fischer did not know why the profession of May Hunter appeared. With such a dreamy food, it is not surprising that there will be hunters who pursue this food. This kind of delicacy, even Fischer wants to become a May Hunter, and travels all over the world to find these dreamy delicacies. Of course, this is just Fischer's whim, and Fischer will not really be a May Hunter. Compared to looking for delicious food, Fischer still prefers to improve his strength. If the world Fischer is in now is the world of captives called May food that he has seen in his previous life, Fischer doesn't mind looking for May food while improving his strength. After all, that world relies on constantly eating a variety of delicious ingredients to improve its strength. It's a pity that the world Fischer is in now is not a prisoner of food, but HunterxHunter. Speaking of this, the worldview of HunterxHunter and the captive of food is quite the same. The human kingdom of HunterxHunter, the world of captives of May food. The dark continent of HunterxHunter is very symmetrical to the May world, which is a captive of May food. I didn't expect such a powerful monster to appear in Zoldyck's house. When Fischer was thinking about the similarity between the two worlds, the voice of Netero, the president of the Hunter Association, came from behind him. Fischer got rid of the grape spider eggs with 3 strokes, and then looked back. I saw the old urchin Netero, the president of the Hunter Association, squinting his eyes and looking at him with a smile. Netero, why do you say that? Fischer responded lightly. Although you little guy can hide it from other people, you can't hide it from the old man. With such a powerful mind, the Zoldyck family, that is, the kid Gino and Maha are stronger than you. At the age of 13, there is such a terrifying mind energy cultivation. It's not a monster, Netero said with a smile. His eyes flickered, and he kept scanning Fischer's body. Obviously, this old urchin was very impressed by Fischer. Interest. Hearing this, Fischer was not surprised. Although he is very confident in his ability to control, Fischer really doesn't have the confidence to hide from Netero, an old guy who has lived for more than 100 years. After all, after living for so many years, this guy has already become a genius. Not many people can compare with him in his eyesight. Fischer really doesn't feel that he can see his cultivation level through his concealment to accident. Okay, you can advance directly, you don't need to continue the next test, Netero said suddenly, rubbing his chin and scanning Fischer for a while. Fischer. Old man Netero, what are you thinking? Hearing the sudden words, Fischer was taken aback for a moment, and then frowned in puzzlement. If I have to have a reason, it is that I think you are more pleasing to the eye. After all, you're an oddity in the Zoldyck family. I have been paying attention to the people in your family. You guy, every assassination mission you take is from those vicious people. That alone is enough to make me think highly of you. Netero explained flatly. In the Zoldyck family, all the clansmen mainly focus on assassination. No one likes to kill, and will kill for no reason. However, the Zoldyck family is an assassination family. As long as there is an assassination commission, the Zoldyck family will execute it, regardless of whether the target is good or bad. As long as it is the mission target, they will kill it, thus completing the assassination commission. However, among this generation of people, Fischer is an exception. From what he knew about the Zoldyck family and Fischer's assassination missions had always been purposeful, and he would only assassinate those who were wealthy, unkind, vicious, and never killed innocent people indiscriminately. As the head of the Hunter Society, Netero has neither good nor bad feelings for Zoldyck, a family of assassins, but I still have a good impression of Fischer, a Zoldyck who doesn't do anything to innocent people. It's a bit like taller than shorter, and Fischer is obviously a more unexpected figure in the Zoldyck family. Fischer considered himself a figure in the dark, but in Netero's eyes he wasn't at all. If the Zoldyck family is pure darkness, then Fischer is a ray of light in the darkness, not swallowed by darkness, with a will of its own. Even for Killua, the assassination is carried out according to the commission, and the assassination target is good and evil. As long as it is the assassination target, then it will try its best to kill it. In the Zoldyck family, the only one who can assassinate with his own will, and has always only assassinated those scum in the underworld, is Fischer. Just like what Fischer's grandfather Gino said, the Zoldyck family doesn't like to kill indiscriminately, except for missions. They only do it for a reason. Normally, assassination is just his job. As long as it is an assassination request, once he accepts it, he will do his best to kill it. And once the entrusted person dies, they will also stop the assassination mission directly. In the original novel, this happened when Ukexin assassinated Killua, the leader of Phantom Troop. After the assassination client, the Underworld 10 old man, was dealt with by Illumi, grandfather Gino and father Silver stopped the mission directly and left. Speaking of assassinations, although the Zoldyck family's assassinations are often assassinations, they are more of an above-board killing, without the appearance of an assassination at all. That's what Grandpa Gino and Dad assassinate Killua are like. Perhaps in the eyes of the two of them, as long as they are all killed and it will not spread, it is an assassination. Not to mention the Zoldyck family. At this time, Fischer was slightly taken aback when he heard Netero's words, and then fell into deep thought. For Fischer, who has been educated in the New World, even if he becomes an assassin, Fischer will not kill innocent people at will, and will only attack those who are extremely vicious and do all kinds of evil. For those innocent people, Fischer really can't do anything unless they come to provoke him. But once you provoke yourself, then it is impossible to be an innocent person, and if you kill him, you will kill him. After pondering for a long time, Fischer looked up at Netero and remained silent. After a long while, Fischer said, "Thanks, but I want to stay here. It should be fine. My brother Killua is taking the exam. I want to watch him." Ho 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 ho. Sure enough, although the Zoldyck family can do whatever they want, they really don't say much about the family relationship, and they are very united. Hearing this, Netero immediately laughed. "It's up to you. You can stay as long as you want." After laughing and giving the answer, Netero turned and walked towards the entrance of the airship. "Remember to ask me for a license later." Chapter 13 Cross-World Check-in Tasks. "Why are you here?" On the airship, in a room, Menchi asked unhappily while eating delicious food while sitting on the sofa. On the sofa on the left and right sides of him were Barat and Sasi, and the person Menchi questioned was Fischer, who was sitting opposite Menchi at this time. "President Netero just informed me that Fischer has passed his test and became a hunter directly." Fischer didn't speak, but Sasi explained for Fischer. While explaining, Sasi couldn't help feeling emotional. Although he knew that Fischer had a great chance of becoming a hunter through the test, he didn't expect that he didn't need to take part in the routine test step by step, but passed the test of the president directly, and became a professional hunter in one step. Hunter test. In addition to the annual routine test, there is another shortcut to become a hunter, that is, to be valued by the president of the association, and to pass the test of the president Netero, so that you can skip those formal procedures and go directly to the sky. Fischer's current situation is the second type. Simply put, it is a privilege, only the privilege of the president of the Hunter Association. Others do not have this power. Huh? He actually passed the president's test. It's a lie, such a brat. I admit that it is very talented to cultivate Nyanki in such a small amount of urine, but the president's test is so difficult. Has this kid passed? Hearing Sasi's answer, Menchi's eyes widened immediately, and he looked into Fischer's gaze full of disbelief. She admits that Fischer has learned at the age of 12 or 13, but it is not impossible. The world is so big, and there are still many geniuses who have mastered N at Fischer's age. Among other things, she herself I have seen one. However, even so, it is impossible to pass the test of President Netero. President Netero's vision is so high, and the difficulty of his test is absolutely unparalleled in the world. Has Fischer passed the test? The president's test has always been in two directions. One is talent, and the other is potential. I personally think that Brother Fischer has both. I'm guessing right. Sax ignored Menchi's surprise, and put his gaze on Fischer, who had been silent all this time, and said as if asking. This is not groundless, but Sasi's educated guess based on what he knew about Fischer when he was running in the wetland. Before he found that Fischer could easily follow his side, and was inseparable, neither fast nor slow, Sasi knew that Fischer was very powerful. With this kind of strength at this age, there is no need to doubt the talent. It is also very strong. However, Sasi did not expect that Fischer would be so powerful that he would be able to pass the test of President Netero, making an exception for President Netero to recruit him into the Hunter Association. Menchi and Bahara were taken aback by Sasi's words, and then they realized their thoughts, and the three of them all focused on Fischer. Obviously, all three are concerned about Fischer's strength. Being stared at by the three, Fischer remained indifferent, as if he didn't feel the expectant eyes of the three. However, this does not seem to be true. At this time, Fischer's mind is on the system in his mind. As for why Fischer, who has always been indifferent to the salty system, would sink his mind here again and again in the past 2 days, it is naturally because the system has something wrong again. After Netero spoke, Fischer quickly got a professional hunter license from the staff of the Hunter Association and became a professional hunter. And not long after Fischer became a professional hunter, that is, just after coming here, the resignation, Salted fish. System in Fischer's mind started to move again. Ding. Congratulations to the host for becoming a professional hunter. The check-in has been triggered. Please check if the host has signed in. For this situation, Fischer was naturally not polite, and signed in directly. However, what you get for signing in this time is not a reward. No, it's not that there are no rewards, but that if you want to get the rewards this time, you need to perform a task. Yes, it is a task. What Fischer got for signing in this time was not a direct reward, but a task. Task name: Ahara in the Sea of Fire. Task introduction: ask the host to rescue Nicole Robin under the order of killing demons! Exclamation mark. Mission reward: Thunderfruit, no side effects. This is the quest triggered by the Fischer check-in reward. A mission across the world. It is also for this reason that Fischer realized that his own system still has the function of traversal. Ahara, this is the island in One Piece that was destroyed by the Navy's demon-slaying order. Nicole Robin was the only survivor of Ahara, and was released by the future Navy General Aokiji Kizun. In other words, if Fischer wants to obtain this reward, he needs to go to that world. As for how to get there, you don't need to think about it because of the mighty power of the system. As for this reward, Fischer really wanted it. Thunderfruit. This devil fruit is perfect for Fischer. Fischer's N is thunder and lightning. If he gets the thunderous fruit, it will be even more powerful for Fischer. Even though Fischer's current lightning N is very powerful, there is still an upper limit to the power of lightning developed by Fischer with Nian Chi. After all, this N is created by Fischer's resistance to being subjected to electric current since childhood. There is no such thing as thunder and lightning, but it is far from thunder and lightning. It is also stronger than the N developed by Killua in the original book. It is only because of Fischer's powerful mind that it is so powerful that even Hisoka's level can be threatened. As for the thunderous fruit, this thing is a veritable thunderbolt. The thunder disaster in nature, once obtained and developed its essence, the power of Fischer's thunderbolt will definitely multiply and skyrocket. At this time, Fischer is thinking about this, and what is thinking about is when is the past. That's right, Fischer is determined to win something that can improve his strength, such as the thunder fruit, and it is impossible to give up. Chapter 14. How about you together, Brother Fischer? Brother Fischer. After thinking, Fischer's mind returned to the present world, and he heard Sasi's call. What's the matter? Fischer asked suspiciously. Just now he was thinking about the task of signing in the system, so Fischer didn't notice what Sasi and others were saying at all. What Fischer said made the three people present speechless for a while, and their faces twitched wildly. After quartering for a long time, this guy has been distracted, and he didn't hear the conversation between himself and others at all. As a last resort, Sasi repeated his inquiry just now. My words, it should not be the case. Apart from my strength, the old man Netero should have a better sense of me, so he did this. After listening to Sasi's words, Fischer pondered for a moment, and then gave there is an answer. It's good for your senses? These words directly made the three of them raise their eyebrows and were speechless. Make an exception if your senses are good. When we are fools. However, the three of them did not know. Netero made an exception for Fischer to become a professional hunter, really because of the senses. However, this sense must be contrastive. The stark contrast between Fischer and the rest of the Zoldyck family was what made Netero an exception. You said your strength is very strong? The three of them didn't believe what the senses said, but the three of them didn't say much, and shifted the topic to another reason that Fischer said, that is, strength. Well, my strength is not bad. Fischer smiled lightly and nodded, not hiding anything. So, do you want to give me a hand? Menchi's eyes lit up slightly, and he extended an invitation to Fischer. She was curious about Fischer's strength. Although on the surface, Fischer's cultivation is not strong, but after what Sasi said just now, Menchi also realized that Fischer should be hiding his clumsiness, so she really wants to know Fischer's real strength. As soon as these words came out, Sasi and Bahara also stared closely at Fischer, wanting to see if Fischer would accept this request for discussion. You? Upon hearing this, Fischer put his eyes on Menchi and scanned, and then he was a little confused, and his eyes shifted to Sasi and Bahara. What, you brat, are you just looking down on me like that? We, Menchi, don't have a reputation for nothing. We are the best among May hunters. Isn't it worthy of being your opponent? Seeing that Fischer turned his eyes away from himself, and looked confused, Menchi gritted his teeth in anger. How about, Mr. Sasi, Mr. Bahara, are you with Menchi? Fischer ignored Menchi and asked Sasi and Bahara. Menchi? Sasi. Brat. As soon as Fischer's words came out, the whole room fell silent. Sasi and the three of them looked at Fischer in astonishment. They obviously didn't expect Fischer to have such an idea, and wanted to single out the three of them. Ho 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 ho, I also want to see your strength, Fischer, Menchi, Sasi, Bahara, you three should go together. But when the three of them were sluggish, the old man Netero was silent appeared in the room and said with a smile, President, President, President. The three of them came back to their senses in an instant, and hurriedly greeted them respectfully. Yes, President. After greeting, all three of them agreed directly. Now that the President has said so, the three of them don't mind following the President's order to fight Fischer together. You think highly of me, Fischer said calmly, looking at Netero. This old man is so powerful that he almost didn't notice it. This guy Netero is worthy of being one of the top 5 fighters in the world, and he is also a top existence in stealth. This guy appeared here, and Fischer only noticed it when he opened the door, and Menchi and the others didn't notice Netero's appearance even if Netero opened the door openly. If the old man hadn't opened his mouth, the 3 of them would not have noticed Netero. Ho 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 ho, you are a monster after all. Netero still smiled the old man. He also wanted to know how Fischer, who had such a strong Nyanki cultivation base, would do in actual combat. This time just to understand. Soon, the group came to a spacious and bright training room led by Netero. Let's say it first, I won't show mercy when a battle starts. Standing opposite Fischer, Menchi slowly pulled out his kitchen knife weapon from the back waist, warning while drawing, and the thought energy on his body was also it began to surge and spread out. Although Sasi and Bahara didn't say anything, they both began to emit their thoughts and enhance their strength. Understood, you don't need to show mercy. No, it should be said. Do you need me to show mercy? Fischer said with a faint smile, and then asked a question. As soon as this question came out, the pupils of the 3 Menchi on the opposite side suddenly shrank, and a trace of anger flashed in the eyes of the 3 of them. Let the 3 of us deal with one of you is already very angry, but you still ask us if we need to show mercy? It's really infuriating. You are so arrogant, so you don't take us seriously? The 3 of them looked at each other, and then quickly launched an attack, full of thoughts and energy, and rushed towards Fischer rapidly. Facing the rapidity of the 3, Fischer remained motionless, but released his N, and his body was entangled with lightning. And just as Fischer's N unfolded, the 3 of Menchi also came to a place about 5 meters away from Fischer's body, and they attacked from 3 different directions, the front, the left and the right. Swish! Exclamation mark. Boom! Exclamation mark. Without any warning, 3 thick bolts of lightning rushed out of Fischer's body in an instant, and struck the 3 men of Menchi who were rushing towards him, without giving them any chance to react. By the time the 3 of them reacted, they had already been struck by lightning, and their entire bodies were enveloped by lightning. The screams echoed in the spacious and bright training room. It took a full 5 seconds for the lightning on the 3 of them to disappear slowly, and the 3 of them were also completely blackened by the electricity, with thick smoke coming out of their mouths. I'm sorry, I've shown mercy, Fischer said with a faint smile as he watched the 3 of them slowly fall to the ground. Fischer's current level is very strong among masters. Even Hisoka can't compare with Fischer, and the same is true for old brother Illumi. In the Hunter Association, among the 3 members of the 12 earthly branches who have scored Hisoka's score, the highest score is only 90 points, while Fischer's eldest brother Illumi has a score of 95 points in Hisoka's eyes. Although the score is not definite, but there is not much error. Illumi with 95 points is not Fischer's opponent either. It is conceivable how strong Fischer is now. It is conceivable that the strength of the 3 Sasi who are not 12 earthly branches, and are all 1-star hunters. To deal with the 3 of them, Fischer didn't need to use all his strength at all. As long as he exerted about 6 layers of strength, it was enough to deal with them. Even for Illumi, dealing with the 3 of them is just a matter of spending a little more effort. In fact, things did go as Fischer predicted. Because they didn't know Fischer's specific strength, and because the 3 of them shot together, the 3 of them who unconsciously despised them were easily struck by Fischer's lightning, and they lost consciousness directly. Ho ho, it really is a monster. Netero in the corner not far away looked at the scene in front of him. His expression remained unchanged, and he praised without hesitation. To each other, compared to me, you are a monster. Fischer flattered with a light smile. Practice martial arts to the point where time is involved. Who is the monster? Chapter 15. Let Netero feed. It's an incredible monster. In the tea room, Netero and Fischer sat opposite each other, and the bin noodle man on one side made tea for them. Netero looked at Fischer with emotion on his face. I said you got it. You keep calling me monsters and monsters. Be careful I turn my face, old guy. Listening to Netero calling himself monsters one by one, Fischer's face of course couldn't help the corners of his eyes twitching wildly, feeling like he wanted to be beaten. Netero thought for a meal. But it was just thinking about it. Fischer didn't really do it. It's not that Fischer really doesn't have this idea, but that he can't beat it. The main reason is that although the old man is old and frail, and his strength is not as good as before, he is not comparable to the current self. This guy, even in old age and frailty, beat himself like a grandson, and Fischer knew that. Don't look at Fischer's Nyanki cultivation base is very deep, almost comparable to his grandfather Gino, but it is really not enough in front of Netero, an old guy who is mature and sophisticated. This is just the cultivation of Nyanchi. Even if the cultivation of Nyanchi is not as strong as him, this guy Netero can still beat himself like his grandson. The old guy has practiced his fighting skills with almost no flaws, no matter how fast his lightning speed is. He can't keep up. This point, the Ant King Maroom has already verified for Fischer. The strong physical quality of the Ant King, its speed and reaction ability are definitely the top in this human country in the world. But even so, He was still hit by the old guy Netero's 100-style Avalokitesvara like a rubber ball. I have to say that although Netero is old and frail, he can beat anyone with the Avalokitesvara as if he is a grandson. As long as it is not specially developed, no one can do anything against his Avalokitesvaran. Even the Ant King, who stands at the top of the human kingdom, is the same. Unless you're faster than time and Netero's prayers can't keep up, expect to be beaten. Look at you, you want to beat me up? Looking at the corners of Fischer's twitching eyes, Netero was very happy, and winked at Fischer, making Fischer almost pass by with lightning. Taking a deep breath, Fischer forced himself to calm down, ignoring the old urchin's provocation. The Netero guy kept calling himself a monster. Fischer knew it all. This guy was delighted to see Sin, and was very excited after seeing his Thundern, so he wanted to compete with him. Naturally, Fischer would not agree to such a thing. Fischer is not a masochist. Knowing how powerful this old guy is, how could he go up to get beaten up? So after Netero sent out an invitation to learn from each other, Fischer refused without thinking. The result is that this guy has been motivating himself in this way ever since. If it wasn't for Killua, who was still conducting the hunter experiment, Fischer would have left the airship long ago, so he wouldn't have to suffer here. Moreover, if the old urchin hadn't specially asked someone to invite him, he wouldn't have appeared in front of this guy. Okay, I'm not mad at you anymore. Let's get back to business. Looking at Fischer's appearance, Netero also knew that this guy would not fight with him, and after so long, Netero also gave up this idea. Fischer, your clan should have established you as the next patriarch. Looking serious, Netero sat upright and said to Fischer, "Why do you ask this?" Fischer was not surprised that Netero knew about this matter. Few people know about the inheritance system of the Zoldyck family, but this old guy is an exception. Compared with this, Fischer is more concerned about the fact that this old man has no fate. Why ask this for no reason? Haven't you always targeted gangsters? So I want you to properly guide the next generation of Zoldyck people after becoming the head of the family. You don't know, your Zoldyck family is very troublesome for the old man when it comes to assassination. If you can restrain yourself, the old man will be more relaxed. After 2 seconds of seriousness, Netero's face collapsed, and he vomited bitterness to Fischer. Let's not talk about whether you will be troubled. Even if you are really troubled, at your current age, can you still live until the next generation of the Zoldyck family grows up? Facing Netero's bitterness, Fischer remained expressionless, completely ignoring it. He asked lightly. He didn't believe that this old guy would take care of this kind of thing, and this old guy was not a pedantic person. However, it is still possible. Decades ago, when grandfather Genuo was born, this old guy went to Kukulu Mountain. Probably because of this incident, he went to find grandfather Maha. Haha, I don't need to worry about that, old man, I am in good health. At least I can live for decades. Hearing this, Netero burst out laughing. Believe me, I'm S13, you bastard, you will die with the Ant King in a year. Fischer didn't speak, but complained in his heart. Although what the old guy said is indeed true, according to the old guy's spirit, it is more than enough to live for another few decades, but I can't bear the fact that the old guy met Chimericans. As a hunter, the president of the association, while enjoying the power, must also bear the corresponding responsibilities. In the case of Chimericans, Netero is to blame. If he can't solve the Ant King, he can only be forced by the V5 people to die with the Ant King. Isn't that the reason why you asked me to come here? If it's the reason, then there's nothing to talk about. Fischer took a sip of the strong tea made by the Dumayanren, and tasted it carefully, and then spoke. Netero's request is simply unrealistic. Even if he has such thoughts, other people in the family will not agree. It's useless to become the head of the family until you grow up. After all, Fischer became the head of the family, and the other elders in the family were still there. It was impossible for grandfather Gino and father Silver to watch Fischer change the style of the Zoldyck family. Okay, no kidding. I came here to hire you. Hearing this, Netero became serious again, and said to Fischer, "Hire?" Fischer raised his eyebrows when he heard that. "My selling fee is very high. Since it is hired, it is almost the same as hired, and Fischer naturally needs a hired fee. 500 million nuns. You will accompany me to a secret place when the time comes." Netero stretched out a palm and said very seriously, 500 million? Fischer was taken aback for such a huge reward! Well, 500 million, as long as you promise, I can pay this reward now. Netero nodded. Okay, I agree, but you need to agree to my request. I hired you, but you are the one who asked me to ask. Just say yes or no. Okay, you say. Don't use the 100 styles of Avalokitesvara. Compete with me. Netero. How did this kid know about mine? Could it be that kid Gino told him? Chapter 16. Stealing a teacher. The three of us are not wronged. It's the first time I've seen someone fight like this with President Netero. In the spacious and bright training room, watching the two after images of violent impact, Sasi, who was wrapped in bandages, was deeply moved. Is it my illusion? Why do I feel that Fischer's fighting skills have improved a little too much? Beside, Bahara, who was also wrapped in bandages, squinted his eyes and said with some uncertainty, "No, it's not your delusion. but this kid's learning ability is amazing. The president's fighting skills are almost stolen by this guy. Menchi also spoke at this time. This guy is the same as Sasuke. He was also covered in bandages. But even so, this guy was still dressed coolly. This must be a girl. But Fischer couldn't figure it out anyway. They are all wrapped up like mummies, and they still have to show their figure. What the hell is this? The three were shocked by the changes in Fischer, who was fighting Netero. In fact, even Netero, who was competing with Fischer, was intimidated by Fischer's strong learning ability. Fischer, in just 2 days, learned his fighting skills, and even applied what he learned, almost completely turning it into a fighting skill suitable for him. 2 days, this kind of thing was done in just 2 days. You know, as a martial artist, Netero's talent can be said to be very strong, otherwise he would not be able to become one of the world's top 5 masters. But even so, it took him decades to hone his fighting skills to the peak. Fischer learned these fighting skills from himself, standing on the shoulders of giants. However, to do this kind of thing in a few days is really beyond Netero's expectation and beyond Netero's tolerance. Since yesterday, when fighting Fischer, Netero felt that his heart was beating several grades faster than before. This is all caused by Fischer. Fortunately, he has a relatively big heart, otherwise he would definitely be shocked by Fischer and have problems. Heart disease is definitely a problem. It's so popular that people compare to each other, so you have to throw them away when you compare goods! In fact, this situation is also very normal. Fischer's own talent is very strong. With a martial arts master like Netero, his fighting skills will naturally increase. What's more, Fischer also has the ability to multiply by 10 times. This ability is not only effective in cultivating, it is also effective in cultivating combat skills. Powerful talent, coupled with a 10-fold increase. That is to say, Fischer learned fighting skills from Netero under 10 times stronger talent. Under such circumstances, Fischer's fighting skills have naturally improved by leaps and bounds. The fighting skills used by Netero kept flashing in Fischer's mind, and Fischer absorbed these fighting skills greedily, and even used them unconsciously. Speaking of which, Fischer also fought with other people in the family before, and obtained fighting skills from his grandfather Gino and father Silver. The fighting skills of the two have been drained by Fischer. The fighting skills of Netero, a 100-year-old man who is still strong, are obviously much better than those of his grandfather Gino and his father Silver. Naturally, it is worthy of Fischer study. However, sparring is not a real battle, but a real fight. There is still a big difference between the two, so the combat experience that Fischer can gain is not too much. Fischer can compete with others to gain combat skills, but he can't always gain combat experience in sparring. After all, the so-called combat experience is the different valuable combat knowledge gained after fighting different enemies. Just fighting with fixed people, the combat experience gained is very limited. After all, the moves are also useful. It's a pity that the ability to multiply by 10 times can't work in this regard. If Fischer had rich combat experience, his strength would have surpassed that of his father Silver. Of course, it would be a different matter if Fischer's strength and fighting skills surpassed his father Silver's too much. In this case, even without enough combat experience is enough to defeat Silver. Just like Illumi in the family, this guy can be regarded as experienced in many battles, but his fighting skills are not strong enough, and his spiritual cultivation is obviously not as good as Fischer. Not everyone is like Fischer, not to mention the powerful talent, but also the ability to increase tenfold. Illumi's talent is weaker than Fischer and Killua, but he just has the advantage of being born early. If the three are of the same age, come into contact with N at the same time, practice N, go out into the world at the same time, and experience various battles, Fischer and Killua are definitely stronger than Illumi. In this case, the talent is not as good as Fischer, and there is no plug-in for the tenfold increase in Fischer. Even if it has been in the morning for a few years, it is useless. Illumi's Neon Chi cultivation and combat skills are still not comparable to Fischer's. They are far behind. Only these two items are enough to make up for Fischer's lack of combat experience, thus surpassing Illumi in strength. In addition to the powerful talent and the ability to multiply by 10 times, Fischer also has the grace of God, the ability to realize hard work, which is completely like a tiger with wings added. The existence of God's favor is also one of the reasons why Fischer asked Netero to feed him. The grace of God can rely on a lot of battles to become stronger and directly transform into its own strength. It can not only enhance combat experience and gain combat skills, but also improve strength. Why not do it? Fischer felt that, judging from this time sparring with Netero, a martial arts master, after Hunter's experiment this time, he should be able to draw with his father Silver. No more fights, no more fights. I have nothing to teach you. Two black after images collided in the training room for a long time, and one of them withdrew from the battlefield, waving his hands and admitting defeat. It was Netero. Netero didn't dare to continue fighting with Fischer. He was afraid that he would be hit by Fischer to commit suicide. Mardan, I've accumulated hundreds of years of accumulation. You have stolen all of your masters in just a few days. I don't want to lose face. Don't fight, don't say anything. In fact, there is really nothing to teach, just like the little meaning. I am afraid that if I continue, I will be poor. Thank you, President Netero. When the time comes, I will do my best for your entrustment. Fischer also retreated from the fighting state, came to Netero, saluted respectfully, and solemnly thanked Netero for his teaching. Netero nodded in satisfaction. That's right. Knowing that you respect your teacher, it's not in vain that I'll do my best to teach you these 2 days. Boy Fischer, you won't be able to contribute to the trip to the secret realm. Netero nodded in satisfaction and said to Fischer. In the past few days, Netero can be said to have tried his best to teach Fischer fighting skills. It is really not an exaggeration to say that he is Fischer's teacher. Don't worry. Fischer smiled lightly and agreed. Chapter 17 Invitation, Team, Counter-Invitation. Hey, Fischer. Do you want to be a May hunter? I happen to be short of a partner. You become a May hunter. Let's go all over the world to find dream food. Coming out of the training room, Fischer was entangled by Menchi, wanting Fischer to become a May hunter like her. Together team up and travel the world to find delicious ingredients. After seeing Fischer's fighting power, Menchi felt that if Fischer can form a team with her, then the world is as big as anyone can go. Sorry, I don't want to be a May hunter. For Menchi's invitation, Fischer declined without thinking. While fantastical cuisines from around the world are certainly tempting, Fischer doesn't want to waste his time hunting for them. Fischer loves fantasy food, like grape spider eggs, but Fischer doesn't want to waste time on them. Fantasy food is at best a trivial preference for Fischer, and it's only human. However, Fischer is not wasting time on this. After all, for Fischer, with his divine grace and tenfold power, every second counts. The time spent running around the world looking for dreamy delicacies, if given to Fischer to practice, Fischer's thoughts will definitely improve a lot. With the development ability of life, Fischer's vitality is huge, and he is not afraid of the upper limit of potential energy. It is estimated that Fischer will not have a limit in the decades of development. After all, Fischer's development ability life can also be improved. The increase in life also means that Fischer's vitality will be stronger, and is the ability to manipulate life energy, which is completely linked to vitality. The stronger the vitality, the stronger the potential energy. Anyway, Fischer has been practicing for several years, and his Nianchi cultivation base has gradually increased, and he has never felt that he has encountered a bottleneck, and he has gone smoothly. This is because Fischer's vitality is too strong. Speaking of it, N is somewhat similar to chakra, both of which are linked to vitality. The stronger the vitality, the smoother the cultivation will be. However, it seems that most of the systems are related to vitality, and this one cannot be separated. No, it seems that the god of death is not. The thing cultivates the soul. Again, if looking for delicious ingredients can improve your strength like a captive of May food, Fischer doesn't mind doing so. However, unfortunately, this world is not good, so Fischer passed without thinking. Of course, if you come across a dream ingredient by chance, Fischer doesn't mind spending a lot of effort to get it. It would also be nice to taste delicious food. While walking slowly, Fischer was thinking, completely ignoring the chattering Menchi beside him who refused to give up. Speaking of which, I'm old enough now, and it's time to form my own team. Although Menchi is not very good at N, she still has the potential to improve. Do you want to subdue her? Just after thinking about N, Fischer's thoughts shifted to other aspects in an instant, to family affairs superior. Every head of the Zoldyck family will form his own team when he is young. Since I have decided to accept the position of the future head of the Zoldyck family, I naturally need to form my own team. Just like Ziponian and Uine, they are the team members of Dad Silver, and they are also the housekeepers directly under the head of the Zoldyck family, and they only obey the orders of the head of the house. Thinking of this, Fischer subconsciously glanced at the mummy Menchi next to him. This guy has not reached his own limit yet, and his strength still needs to be improved. It is estimated that if his potential is fully developed, even if he is not Hisoka's opponent, he will not be much worse than Hisoka. Of course, it is the current Hisoka, and Hisoka will continue to grow. Moreover, even if Menchi's talent is limited, Fischer also has a way to let him continue to improve his strength regardless of talent. As for the method, it is naturally the grace of God on Fischer. Fischer's divine favor does not come from the gods, but is bestowed by the system, and the source of the favor is Fischer himself. That is to say, Fischer can describe favors to others at any time, thus creating a Fischer family belonging to Fischer. However, once this thing is portrayed, it will be bound by grace and become Fischer's subordinate. Fischer had decided long ago to use this to train his men. As for portraying favors to family members, Fischer hadn't considered this matter. After all, once God's grace is portrayed, it's Fischer's underling. Family members become subordinates. How to listen, how to respond. Also, no one in the Zoldyck family is normal, which is why Fischer didn't do it. God's grace is only suitable for people like Menchi who are not strong in potential and lack of aptitude, and want to continue to improve their strength slowly and have no way. As for why he didn't choose among the butlers of the Zoldyck family, it was because Fischer wanted to take the elite line, not the mass line. Hey, Menchi, you want me to be a May hunter? Go with you to find May food all over the world. Hunter is looking for my strength, right?" Fischer interrupted, looking at the non-stop Menchi. "Well, that's right." Menchi, who was talking, was slightly taken aback when he heard the words, and then nodded in response. This is not something that can't be said. She really liked Fischer's strength, so she wanted Fischer to be her companion. If there is a way to make you stronger in battle, would you like it?" Fischer nodded, and then asked, "A way to quickly become stronger in battle?" Hearing this, Menchi's eyes narrowed immediately. "Is there any price?" "It's not a serious price, but once you accept this method, it's like being tied to me." "Bundle together?" "Does that mean I will be your subordinate?" "That's what it means. Don't you want?" "Let me think about it." "Up to you, but get back to me before I leave." Chapter 18. The old guy who doesn't talk about martial arts. Menchi joins. "Your younger brother's assassination skills are really good. You have used limbs to such an extent at such a young age." In the airship control room, Netero looked at the countless huge screens in front of him, staring at one of them, without hesitation praising, and beside him was Fischer. At this time, in front of the two of the Marden's surveillance cameras, which filmed the island where Hunter's experiment was located from various angles. And now it's the fourth test. As long as it passes this test, only the last chairman will review it. Netero is in charge of the last experiment, and the content of the experiment depends entirely on Netero's mood. If Netero is in a good mood, he will just give a test to deal with it. If it is not good, all candidates who reach this level may be eliminated. After all, he is the most talented member of the Zoldyck family ever. Fischer nodded slightly, agreeing, but these words made Netero almost pull the beard off his chin. "You tell me this kid is the most gifted member of the Zoldyck family? When the old man is blind, in front of a monster like you, this kid is completely the generation who sprinkles water." This guy is afraid of comparisons. After learning about Fischer's strength, Killua has a good talent, but that's all in Netero's eyes. People are more popular than others, so you have to throw away when you compare goods. "What kind of eyes do you have?" Looking at Netero's weird eyes, Fischer was a little puzzled. The authorities are confused by the bystanders, but Fischer is preconceived. He has learned about the situation of the Zoldyck family in his previous life. Killua Zoldyck is the most talented member of the Zoldyck family in history, so he didn't count himself in for a while. Therefore, he couldn't understand why Netero's eyes were so strange for a while. Moreover, even if it is included, what he said is correct, because although his talent is stronger than Illumi, it is still worse than Killua. "No, it's nothing." Netero also saw that Fischer wasn't joking at all. This guy didn't seem to count himself in at all, and his face became even weirder, but he didn't say much, and turned his attention to the monitor again. "Hey, old man, you monitor so much. You should also monitor the daily emergency of these candidates." At this time, Fischer suddenly came over and asked Netero in a low voice. As soon as these words came out, Netero immediately jumped up. "Old man, how could I do such a shameful thing?" "Who knows? After all, you are an old urchin, and it is very possible that you will do any weird things." Brat, go to the training room with the old man, and see if the old man doesn't punish you." "Just go, I'm afraid of you." "Damn old guy, you actually use 100 styles of avialable." In Fischer's room, Fischer held his bruised nose and swollen cheeks with a look of displeasure. Originally, Fischer thought that Netero would fight him in the same way as before, but he didn't expect that this guy didn't talk about martial arts, and directly opened up and beat him with the 100-style Guanyin. However, fortunately, I am not a vegetarian. Unlike the Ant King, he has no long-range attack ability. Melee combat with a large Netero is definitely the most stupid, so Fischer just uses thunder for long-range attacks, and doesn't fight Netero head-on at all. This time, Netero ran right around the practice room after Fischer. Fortunately, Netero knew it was the training room, so he didn't dare to attack too powerfully, otherwise Fischer would not only have a bruised nose and a swollen face, he would probably have to lie in bed for a few days. However, although Fischer was beaten like a pig's head by Netero, Netero was not much better. Although the old man Netero was driving a 100-style avialable, both offensive and defensive, but 100 secrets must have a secret, Fischer still seized the opportunity, gave the old man an electrotherapy, and directly gave his smug beard to him. "Got it." Hiss. The pain from the touch on the face made Fischer take a breath unconsciously. Menchi, who had been transformed from his mummy state, was now holding a potion to apply to Fischer. The old guy Netero is really ruthless. The damage caused to Fischer can't even be effective for Fischer's treatment of N, and I don't know what other abilities this guy's 100-style Guanyin has besides direct attack power, so that he can't heal N work. "How dare you fight with President Netero in that state? You really are a newborn." While giving Fischer medicine, Menchi said strangely. As an old man of the association, Menchi knows some secrets. The 12 earthly branches in the association have been beaten by President Netero with Bshi Guanyin before. Those are the 12 earthly branches. All of them are monsters, but all 12 of them were beaten up with bruised noses and swollen faces. Some of them released water to entertain the old man. Menchi really admires Fischer's daring to fight Netero in a big state. Hiss. That's because the old man doesn't talk about martial arts. I thought it was the same as before. Fischer twitched his face, felt pain again, and said indignantly, by the way, I told you before, how do you think about it? The hunter experiment is coming to an end. I'm going back to. After passing this village, there will be no such shop. Immediately, Fischer asked Menchi. It's been 2 days since the last time, and the hunter trial is coming to an end. If the Menchi guy doesn't reply, Fischer will treat it as a rejection. Can you really improve your strength quickly? Hearing this, Menchi frowned slightly, doubting uncertainly. As long as you fight a lot, you can quickly become stronger. As for the enemy, as long as they are not too weak. Fischer nodded slightly and explained. Hearing this, Menchi fell into deep thought, and Fischer didn't disturb him when he saw this, but took the potion from Menchi's hand and wiped it on himself. After a long time, Menchi finally had a reaction, raised his head, looked at Fischer firmly, and said solemnly, okay, I agree. Menchi is well aware of his potential, and has been a hunter since he was a teenager and has been mediocre among hunters for so many years. As a May hunter, her only hobby is to find May food all over the world, but she can't enter many places with May food. The reason is that she is not strong enough to get May food from those places in hand. This is a very uncomfortable thing for May hunter, but she has no choice but to feel sorry for her lack of strength. If what Fischer said was true, she wouldn't mind being Fischer's underling, as long as her strength can be improved so that she can get those dream ingredients from those dangerous places. She can do anything. Of course, without touching her bottom line. Okay, then I will give you the method to quickly improve your strength now. Take off the gauze, turn around, and I will engrave favor on you. Well, okay. The grace of God is a very precious gospel for Menchi, who is and who can't go up or down. Because people like Menchi are not talented enough, it is obviously unrealistic to quickly improve their strength in a short period of time, but with the grace of God, they can fight continuously, and then the grace of God will transform their own strength. Harvest conversion, quickly become the benefactor's own strength. In contrast, for Silver and Grandpa Gino, the grace of God is a bit superfluous. Because the strength of the two is too strong, there are not many existences in this world who are similar to them, so that they can use the grace of God to become stronger. Chapter 19 The Final Test, Fischer in Anger. In 2 days, Fischer finally digested the bruises on his face and restored his appearance to its peak. And the 4th hunter trial is over. The 9 candidates who passed the exam also started the final round of exams. There is no difference from the original book. The final round of exams is a battle mode dominated by Netero. The old man also euphemistically called physical ability value, mental ability value, impression value and other big principles, but they are all nonsense. Fischer knew very well that this hunter's final trial was just a little game that the old man thought up at will, a little game to kill his boredom. This guy also purposely held talks with all the candidates who passed the exam the day before the exam. The old man just wanted to watch the battle of a few candidates, to see if he could find someone who could accompany him to relieve his boredom. That's how willful he was. At this time, everyone was gathered in a guild hall. Fischer also followed Netero and others to participate in this experiment and became a witness. Yo, brother, you're still here. I didn't see you before. I thought you gave up halfway. Killua, this guy, noticed Fischer at the first sight when he came here, and immediately waved his hands excitedly. How could I give up? I was just accepted by the old man Netero. That is to say, I'm already a professional hunter, and I don't need to go through repeated tests like you. Fischer nodded slightly, and then explained. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of all the candidates present suddenly changed, and then all the candidates' eyes fell on Netero. Although they didn't speak, the changes in everyone's expressions clearly expressed their confusion and doubts. But the person concerned didn't pay attention to these gazes. At this moment, he was scratching his smooth forehead and looking at the documents in his hand. What's the matter? After a while, Netero seemed to notice the gazes of the crowd, and asked belatedly, but the puzzled look on his face seemed that he didn't intend to explain at all. For this, everyone present hated their teeth itchingly, but there was really nothing to do. After all, the final interpretation of the hunter experiment rests with Netero, the president, and they can't interfere with what President Netero wants to do. Then, the final test is about to begin. This time the experiment is. Fischer didn't listen to what he said next, but paid attention to it. Netero's words are not nutritious, and Fischer doesn't bother to listen. At this time Fischer is talking to Menchi. This guy Menchi is Fischer's first direct manager, and there are some things that need to be clarified. As the first subordinate, Fischer is also ready to do his best to train. Not to mention reaching the level of Hisoka and Illumi, but it can't be too far behind, at least to the level of being able to fight undefeated. After this experiment, go to Kukulu Mountain with me. I'll teach you how to improve your strength as soon as possible. Fischer ordered to Menchi. The grace of God. This ability can be strengthened through continuous fighting, high-intensity fighting and killing. The ability of God's grace will transform the host's own efforts into reality, and become the host's own strength improvement. As long as Fischer is willing to spend time feeding Menchi, then Menchi's strength will definitely improve quickly. Although it is not possible to improve rapidly all the time, it is still possible to improve to a certain extent. Okay, I'll leave it to you when the time comes, Fischer. Naturally, Menchi would not refuse such a good thing, and agreed without thinking. After obtaining the favor of God, Menchi already knew the ability of grace of God, so he also knew what it would be like for him to have a powerful move. As for the refusal, it should be said that even if she wanted to, she couldn't refuse. After all, she has become Fischer's subordinate, and the grace of God has a strong binding force. Speaking of which, do you have any recommendations for people with similar qualifications to you? Since Fischer wants to build his own team, naturally the more the better. Of course, the minimum requirement for a team is to have a talent similar to Menchi's. If Fischer is too short, he doesn't want it, and there is no need to cultivate it. Does Bharat count? Menchi was slightly taken aback when he heard that, then looked at Bharat beside him, and whispered in Fischer's ear. Let's forget about him, his aptitude is too bad. Fischer shook his head and directly denied it. This guy, Bahara, is about the same age as Menchi, but his Nyanki cultivation is much lower than Menchi's. From this, it can be seen that his general aptitude does not meet Fischer's requirements. That's saucy. Since it doesn't work, then I can't help it. I don't know many people. I'm pretty strong in May Hunter. Not many are better than me, but they are all very old. I'm not familiar with other types of occupation hunter. Menchi shrugged, saying that he had no one to recommend. That's right, then there's no other way, but in the future, pay more attention to people like you who want to become stronger but are limited. Of course, appearance must pass the test. Fischer was not surprised when he heard this, and ordered aloud. That's right, Fischer is a face control, and Fischer doesn't want his direct butler to be some crooked guy. Okay, I see, I'll pay attention. Menchi nodded and agreed. After the conversation was over, Fischer closed his eyes and rested without watching the child-level battle that had already started. No, it's not so much a rest, it's better to say it's cultivation. With eyes closed. Time passed bit by bit, and Fischer, who was practicing, was awakened by a familiar evil breath. As soon as he opened his eyes, Fischer saw Illumi exuding black thoughts all over his body, and opposite him was Killua, who was covered in cold sweat and lowered his head in horror. Seeing this scene, Fischer's face suddenly turned cold, and he asked Illumi loudly, Illumi, what are you doing? As soon as the voice fell, a terrifying aura swept across the entire venue instantly, and the wind blew wildly. Except for Netero, Hisoka, and Illumi, all the candidates present showed shock expressions, and the candidates who did not practice were also suppressed by this breath, showing panic. As you can see, I don't want to fight Killua, so I want Killua to retreat. Illumi turned around and said flatly, you're trying to give Killua a psychological hint. I should have said that Killua can take whatever path he wants, and he doesn't need your intervention. Fischer's eyes sparkled, and he reprimanded him indifferently, without treating Illumi as an older brother at all. You are really domineering. You won't give in anything about Killua. Illumi's face remained calm. I've already given in. Don't take my kindness for granted. The thunder and lightning appeared. Fischer's waist-length silver hair fluttered with the wind waves. His blue eyes shone even more, and his whole body was cold. It was fierce and ferocious, as if it would launch a thunderous strike at any time. Hey, I'll stop right now. Seeing Fischer like this, Illumi was silent for a moment, then raised his hands to express his surrender. Afterwards, Illumi looked at the referee and said to the referee, I abstain. Chapter 20 Return, Power Sign-In. Without Illumi's psychological suggestion, Killua was not completely crushed, so the experiment ended smoothly, and Killua was also different from the original book, and got the hunter license. And the only one who was eliminated was the archer Bbook. Although this guy is good at shooting bows and arrows, his melee combat is really not that good, not even Leorio. So he was eliminated without suspense at all, and Bbook, who was supposed to die in the hands of Killua, was lucky to pass the hunter test this time and obtain the hunter license. Still, not being hunter would have saved the guy's life. After all, this guy's future is very miserable, being eaten by the queen ant. Thank you, brother. If it wasn't for you this time, I would probably lose control. After the experiment was over, Killua came to Fischer's side and thanked Fischer gratefully. It's okay, tell me if Illumi does this again in the future, and I'll cut him. Fischer reached out and patted Killua's head lightly, and said with a faint smile. Fischer had already given in once before on the matter of Bbook, and let Illumi stick a chanting needle in Killua's forehead. If Illumi continued to push forward this time, Fischer would not be polite. Even if it came to Dad Silver and Grandpa Jano, Fischer would still be right. Don't slap me on the head. Killua slapped the hand on the head away, annoyed. Okay, the hunter experiment is over, and it's time for me to go back to Kukalu Mountain. Killua, if you want to practice please come back. I will set aside a month to teach you. No waiting. Fischer smiled lightly, and then said, okay, I'll go back. Killua's eyes lit up when he heard that, and he agreed without thinking. The reason why he ran away from home before was because he didn't want to obey the family's arrangements, but it didn't mean that he hated staying at home and didn't want to go home. Killua is naturally willing in every possible way to go back to cultivate stronger strength this time. Menchi? Follow up. Fischer nodded, then greeted Menchi beside him, then turned and left. Menchi also responded, and then followed behind Fischer. Brother, when did you get the examiner done? Killua was surprised when he saw that Menchi followed Fischer as soon as he shouted. Killua, have you thanked your brother? At this time, Kurapika and Leorio came over, and Kurapika said aloud. By the way, Leorio, Kurapika, I'm going back to Killua Mountain. Do you want to come with me? Killua nodded slightly, and then extended an invitation to the two. I have something to do, so let's forget about it. Kurapika was slightly taken aback when he heard this, and then refused with a smile. Now that he has obtained the hunter license, Kurapika just wants to start the life of hunter as soon as possible. He wants to get information about how he wants to become stronger, get information about spiders, and he wants revenge. I'm gone too. Now that I've got the hunter license, it's time for me to continue my studies. Leorio also shook his head regretfully, rejecting Killua's invitation. Are you really not coming? I'm going back this time to follow my brother to learn the ability to release lightning. Maybe I can ask my brother to let you practice together. Killua blinked and said again after hearing this. Go, please let me follow you to Killua Mountain. I'll go. Hearing that they were going to study, Kurapika and Leorio immediately changed their previous attitudes. They were extremely excited, and they moved directly in front of Killua and yelled loudly. Then let's go back to my house together after Gon wakes up. Killua was stunned, then said with a smile. On the other hand, after leaving the Hunter Association's mansion, Fischer took Menchi on a return journey. Coming out this time, Fischer also gained a lot. Not only did he collect a lot of wool from Netero and improve his fighting skills, but he also got 2 check-ins, a celestial blade that can resurrect the dead, and a chance to get the thunder fruit that has no side effects. In addition, the butler team directly under him has just begun to be formed. It has been rewarding. After spending a day, Fischer and Menchi took the airship back to the Zoldyck family in the Bartosha Republic. What a big door! When Menchi first came to Killua Mountain, he was shocked by the huge front door of the Zoldyck family. This door is the trial door of Killua Mountain. Only by entering through this door will you not be attacked by Sanmao, the guard dog inside. Menchi, go and see how many trial doors you can open. Fischer explained to Menchi. How many? What do you mean? You'll know once you try it. Don't use n. Fischer smiled lightly and warned. He also wondered how many doors Menchi could open without using n. He could only open 6 doors by himself. As for the 7th door, only his father Silver had opened it, and his grandfather Gina hadn't seen whether it was opened or not. Then I'll give it a try. With a doubtful attitude, Menchi stepped forward, put his hands on the door, and began to exert force. With this force, Menchi knew what Fischer meant. Interesting, let's see how many doors I can open. Menchi grinned, and then used all his strength. Rumble! Under Menchi's force, the door opened slowly. 3 doors. How about it? After opening the 3 doors, Menchi confidently asked Fischer for credit. There are only 3 doors, so it's okay. Okay, come in with me. Looking at the same number of doors as Killua, Fischer sighed slightly, and then said. Originally, he thought that Menchi, as an user, would be able to open more doors than Killua even if he didn't use n. After all, he was thinking too much, and not everyone, like the Zoldyck family, had that kind of training since childhood. What do you mean? Are you dissatisfied? Seeing that Fischer's reaction was not as he imagined, Menchi was suddenly puzzled. Besides fighting against me, you also need to exercise your strength. Your strength is too weak. Fischer didn't hide it, and directly expressed his dissatisfaction. Am I very weak? Very small. As soon as the words came out, Menchi was like an eggplant beaten by frost, wilting, obediently followed Fischer into the trial gate. Ding! Congratulations to the host for officially forming the Patriarch's power and triggering the sign-in reward. In the future, every time the host's Patriarch force adds a direct steward, the system will trigger a power sign-in. Note, the host's direct butler, the aptitude of each of them cannot be weaker than that of the May Hunter Menchi, otherwise it will not be triggered. May I ask the host to sign in? But at the moment Fischer took Menchi into the door of trial, the reminder of the salted fish system sounded in Fischer's mind, which made Fischer slightly dazed. Power. Chapter 21 Feedback. Sign-in rewards for faction members. However, this is not over yet. When Fischer murmured about his power in his heart, the system's prompt sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for forming a faction and getting the ability feedback of Menchi, a member of the faction. Congratulations to the host for getting Menchi's cooking ability. Fischer. The prompts sounded one after another, making Fischer a little confused. My own system has always been very salty. Why is it so active and generous today? Ability feedback from force members? That is to say, every time I recruit a direct butler who can be recognized by the system, I can obtain an ability from that member? After being confused, Fischer couldn't help rubbing his chin and thinking. System, Is it like this? Fischer asked the system in his heart. However, it is a pity that the system guy is very cold and did not respond to Fischer's inquiry. This made Fischer a little speechless, but soon Fischer put this speechlessness behind him. He already has a clear understanding of the high coldness, salted fish, of the system guy, so he doesn't feel unbearable. After all, more than 10 years have passed. However, the system didn't say anything. But Fischer also knew that his guess should be right. However, this kind of thing has a long way to go. After all, he couldn't easily see things like aptitude. Before practitioners did not practice Fischer could not see their aptitude at all. And those who have cultivated and have good qualifications are mostly arrogant people, and it is impossible to become others' subordinates at will. In other words, Menchi, Fischer recruited with the mentality of giving it a try. In other words, Menchi, because of the relationship between food and strength, has a strong obsession, so he easily agreed. As for other talents with strong qualifications, Fischer cannot 100% guarantee that they will be able to lure and recruit successfully. However, there are currently two options: J-Freaks and Kurapika. As for Leorio, forget it. Although this guy will learn in the future, his aptitude is not very good. And among the two, J-Freaks, the guy Fischer passed directly. As the protagonist, this guy can't possibly be inferior to others. It's Kurapika who has a chance to get it. This guy Kurapika can prescribe the right medicine. This guy wants to acquire powerful abilities in a short time to avenge Phantom Troop. I can satisfy this guy. After all, with the grace of God, as long as Kurapika works hard enough, with this guy's powerful talent as a Kairuta tribe, it is possible to obtain a powerful in a very short period of time. Moreover, if this guy joins the Zoldyck family, he can also use the Zoldyck family's intelligence network and borrow the power of the Zoldyck family to find traces of Phantom Troop. All the conditions mean that Kurapika, the Seed Fischer, can win. Let's try it when the time comes. Muttering inwardly, Fischer put his mind on the system. Sign in. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the Menchi Menchi special version. Menchi? It's actually this thing, and it's also a Menchi specific version. Could it be that this thing can only be used by Menchi? Hearing the voice of the system, Fischer couldn't help raising his eyebrows, looking at the ball of white light floating in the system space, showing surprise. This white light cluster is exactly the Menchi that Fischer just obtained. Fischer's thoughts moved slightly, and his mind was immersed in the light ball, and the information on the light ball was clearly exposed to Fischer's mind in an instant. As expected, this thing is exclusive to Menchi, and I can't use it. So it seems that what you get when you sign in for a faction is something exclusive to each faction member. Fischer guessed silently in his heart. This is probably a small stove for me by the system to let the forces I formed grow up with me. Otherwise, as my strength increases, the strength of the members of the formed forces will be pulled further and further away by me, and I will not be able to help them at all. Do me a favor. Thanks, system. Silently thanking the system in his heart, Fischer withdrew his mind and returned to the present world. The two came one after the other, and soon came to the castle of the Zoldyck family. As soon as he got back to the castle, Fischer called a housekeeper and asked him to take Menchi to arrange the door accommodation. Although Menchi joins the Zoldyck family and is also a butler, but as a butler directly under the head of the house, Menchi will obviously enjoy higher treatment and power than ordinary butlers, and can also enjoy the service of other butlers. Of course, this is okay. When you have something to do, you have to perform the duties of a housekeeper. Menchi. This thing is the hard currency among the captives of May food, and it is the standard equipment for becoming stronger. Among the May captives, which one has no May cells? This thing seems to contain food demons, and I don't know what kind of food demons the food cells in my hand will be, and what color they are. However, this reward is a good match for Menchi. Menchi, as a May hunter, likes to search for dreamy and delicious ingredients all over the world. This can promote the development of May cells, and the development of May cells can also make the host stronger. The rewards given by the system must be carefully selected. His mind was once again immersed in the May cells in the system space. Fischer looked at the May cells, and silently recalled the information about the May cells in his heart. Turning his mind round, Fischer didn't waste too much time on the May cells, got up and left the room. Fischer is going to meet Dad Silver. Now that the direct steward has been formed, it is natural to say hello to Father Silver, the current head of the family, and ask him to arrange Menchi's identity. Otherwise, other people in the family will not know the existence of Menchi, and misunderstandings will easily occur. After asking the butler to report, and getting Silver's current location from the butler, Fischer rushed towards that location. Silver is now in a training room, and it took Fischer half an hour to get there. No way, the castle of the Zoldyck family is too big. Walking around at home, Fischer couldn't rush as fast as fighting, but walked slowly, so it took so long. You're back, Fischer. Fischer's arrival stopped Silver, who was working on her skills. Well, back. Killua should be home in a few days. I came here this time to tell you that I have started to form a direct manager. Her name is Menchi, and she is a professional hunter. Make arrangements to avoid any trouble. Fischer nodded lightly, and then explained his purpose of coming here. Is it actually a professional hunter? As expected of my son, I know, I will arrange it. Silver seemed very surprised by Fischer's words, and his son actually kidnapped a professional hunter back. Why is your tone so weird? Hearing Silver's words, Fischer frowned slightly, feeling a little uncomfortable. What's wrong? No, nothing. Chapter 22 Renewal of Favors, Menchi's Promise. Dad, let's have a sparring session tonight. Putting aside the weird thoughts in his mind, Fischer sent a sparring request to Silver. Why at night? If you want to compete, you can do it now. Silver did not refuse. Menchi just came here, I have something to explain. Let's go tonight. Fischer shook his head. Okay, let's come here tonight. It's been a long time since we father and son have competed. Silver nodded after hearing this, expressing his understanding. Well, I'll go first. Fischer nodded slightly, then said goodbye and left here. Fischer, the aura on his body has become stronger again. It seems that going out for a trip is not a small gain. After Fischer left, Silver murmured thoughtfully. On the other hand, Fischer went straight to his room after leaving the training room. After returning to the room, Fischer took off his shirt, bit his finger to leave blood, and then pressed the bloody finger on his back. The faint blue light instantly filled the entire room, and sacred characters flew up from Fischer's back and spun rapidly. After a while, the sacred words returned to Fischer. Fischer skillfully took out a piece of paper, pressed it against his back for 3 seconds, and then took it off. Fischer's delay in fighting Silver was certainly not because of Menchi. The reason for the delay is because he needs to renew his God's grace. There is no doubt that God's grace can transform one's own training, fighting and killing the enemy into one's own strength. Fischer sparred with Netero for several days on the airship of the Hunter Association. During those few days, Netero's combat skills improved rapidly. This is just Fischer's own talent, but there are still some improvements that Fischer has not mastered, and God's grace has completely mastered these enhancements. As long as Fischer updates God's grace, then these strengths will naturally be transformed and be mastered by Fischer. Once updated, Fischer's strength will definitely increase again. Moreover, it is still an improvement under the 10-fold increase ability. Fischer Zoldyck LV.5 Strength SS 1068 SSS 1969 Durability SS 1089 SSS 1996 Dexterity SS 1078 SSS 1959 Agile SS 1035 SSS 1999 Magic SS 1086 Development Ability Life A. Swordsman B. Killer C. Magic Guide D. Magic Blink Instantly move. You can move to the marked place without chanting, and consume a lot of magic power. Skill N. The ability to manipulate life energy. Freely manipulate the life energy emitted from the body to form a powerful ability. Has it increased so much in just a few days? Shouldn't it be Netero? Fischer narrowed his eyes slightly as he saw the increase in the value on the favor meter, feeling deeply moved in his heart. Except for magic power, the other 4 basic values have all increased to more than 1900, and each value has increased by more than 800. Don't think that Fischer's favor value has only increased by 800 under the 10-fold increase ability, but it also depends on what level Fischer is now. The current Fischer's level is already LV.5. Reaching this level, it can be said that it is very difficult for Fischer's numerical improvement. When I was exchanging ideas with my father Silver and my grandfather Gino, Fischer's 4 stats only increased by more than 400 each under the 10-fold increase. This is the result of continuous exchanging for half a month. But this time, Fischer only fought Netero for 3 days, and gained so much in 3 days. It is conceivable how big and impressive Fischer's gains this time are. How wonderful it would be if this kind of opportunity still exists. However, it's difficult. Even if we discuss with the old man Netero, it won't improve much. Looking at the favor watch in his hand, Fischer felt a little regretful. Fischer knows that this kind of opportunity is hard to come by, and even if he gets this kind of opportunity again, he probably won't be able to get this kind of chance to increase his strength. If life and death are fought, if he can survive, his strength may increase again. However, Fischer has no grievances with the old man Netero, so naturally he won't have nothing to do to fight with him. Moreover, even if they really fight, Fischer is not the old man's opponent now. We are short of Albert now. Once Albert is enough, I can upgrade. At that time, my strength will undergo a huge change. The grace of God, every level of promotion, the strength will undergo a huge change. This is beyond doubt. Fischer has also upgraded several times in the past 10 years, so he naturally understands the mystery. Burning the paper in his hand, Fischer got dressed. As soon as he got dressed, Menchi's voice came from the door, as if pinched. Fischer, are you there? Come in. Already arranged? Looking at Menchi, Fischer asked. Well, it's already arranged. Menchi nodded, but then his expression changed, and he couldn't wait to ask Fischer, when will you give me a trick? It's not urgent. I'll give you something nice first, Fischer said calmly, his face unchanged. Good stuff? Menchi wondered. Well, Something that can improve your strength is very suitable for you. Fischer nodded. As soon as the words fell, Fischer reached out and pressed Menchi's forehead, and directly injected the cells into Menchi's body with the power of the system. Menchi immediately stood there in a daze, his eyes glazed over, and he didn't return to his senses for a long time. Fischer was not surprised to see this, and sat on the sofa, quietly waiting for Menchi to come back to his senses. After a long time, Menchi came back to his senses, his eyes flickering. "Thank you, Fischer, my life will be yours from now on." After learning about the perfect phagocytic cell, Menchi was very excited and assured Fischer with a solemn expression. Menchi is very aware of the preciousness of this thing, and also understands what Fischer said just now, why this thing is suitable for him. For such a precious gift, she can't repay her, and after thinking about it, there is only one way to repay her gratitude. "Your life is mine." Menchi. Chapter 23, Discussion. Ready? In the middle of the training room, Fischer and Silver stood opposite each other. Silver said lightly. And in the walled corridor of the training room, all members of the Zoldyck family appeared here except Killua and Maha. Illumi also returned to the Zoldyck family, and Menchi was also in the corridor at this time, but instead of standing with the Zoldyck tribe, he stood alone on the other side. Everyone in the Zoldyck family didn't want to miss Fischer's challenge to Silver, not to mention those in the family, and even Illumi, who was still hanging out, came back immediately. It was also thanks to him that he was able to rush back to the family in such a short time. "Get ready, let's start," Fischer said lightly, and then slowly pulled out the long sword in his hand. A powerful aura instantly spread out from Fischer's body, turning into layers of air waves sweeping out in all directions. Silver, who was the first to bear the brunt, suddenly had long hair flying, and everyone in the corridor was also hit by the powerful air wave, and their cheeks were scratched painfully. I forgot to mention that Fischer is a swordsman who has practiced swordsmanship since he was a child. He is an out-and-out master of swordsmanship. This can be seen in the developmental ability shown in Fischer's Divine Grace. B-level swordsman development ability, second only to A-level life. Well, Fischer's aura has become stronger again. Mom is so relieved. On the other side, being hit by Fischer's aura, Mother Kikyo was the first to react, holding her cheeks in excitement, like Emmy's average. It's only been a few months, and the aura has become so strong. It's really a monster. Grandpa Gino couldn't help squinting his eyes after feeling the aura. A few months ago, Fischer's aura wasn't as strong. Even if it was him, it was nothing more than a full-scale unleashing of aura. Ah, what a powerful aura, Fischer. On the other side, Illumi has completely perverted at this time. His face that has always been indifferent has completely changed at this time, and the dark pupils that look like black holes are nothing at first glance. But looking at it again, it is extremely frightening, exuding a strong aura to compete with Fischer's aura, and the waist-length black hair flew up, straight to the ceiling. Illumi is not only controlled by Killua, but also controlled by Fischer. As long as it is the choice of the head of the family, Illumi cares very much, loves it, and this care, love even turns into a desire to control. It's just that Fischer's strength is so powerful that Illumi can't control it at all, so he puts his energy on Killua. But this does not prevent Illumi from caring for his younger brother. And Fischer's strength has become stronger again, which makes Illumi very happy, and when he is happy, Illumi's state will become what it is now. TCH, he spat in a funny voice. Brother Fischer, Kaluto whispered. As expected, our house is really the birthplace of monsters, Fischer. I don't want to treat you as a monster at the speed at which you improve your strength. Silver, who was facing Fischer's momentum, felt the deepest, so he felt the deepest emotion for Fischer in his heart. Stop talking about this, let's start. I'll go first, Fischer said calmly with his usual expression, and then he flashed his figure and rushed towards Silver quickly. Seeing this, Silver didn't say any more, and also galloped towards Fischer. Swish! Exclamation mark. The fight between the two did not start from close quarters, but from Fischer's slash. Yulan's huge slash completely ignored the specially reinforced training ground, and directly opened a gully more than 1 meter deep on the extremely hard ground and rushed towards Silver. Silver, who was running, didn't panic at all, exerted a little force in his hands, his thick arms were exposed, and then the mighty N gathered in his hands, and a huge, purple lightning entangled mind energy bullet was born in his hands. Silver threw it forcefully, meeting Fischer's slash head-on. Boom! Exclamation mark. A loud noise shook the entire training ground, and the center of the training ground was filled with smoke. The figures of Fischer and Silver were also submerged in the smoke. Afterwards, a series of violent collision sounds continued to be heard from the smoke. Powerful thoughts and slashes spewed out of the smoke from time to time, splashing out in all directions, drawing gaps on the wall, and in just 10 seconds, the specially reinforced training room became dilapidated. What are you doing? You won't be able to see anything like this. Meiji muttered with some displeasure. I told you to practice, but if you don't listen, you'll be messing around with those messes all day long. Hearing this, Grandpa Jinuo scolded loudly, and Meiji choked for words. Except for the jokes, the others watched with relish the flickering figures in the smoke, and the presence of the smoke didn't block their sight at all. Equally matched, really strong, Fischer. After watching for a long time, Gino sighed again, deeply moved by Fischer's strength. Grandpa, are they making a real fuss? At this moment, Illumi suddenly spoke, with a hint of doubt in his tone, as if he was a little uncertain. It seems to be a real fire. This guy Silver seems to be trying his best. I don't know if Fischer can handle it. Gino nodded. He can also see that this battle seems to be entering a fierce stage. And as soon as Gino's voice fell, a powerful shock swept across the battlefield, blowing away the smoke, revealing the scene inside. I saw that the two people who were originally entangled had turned into the initial confrontation again at this time. Both of them exuded an extremely terrifying aura, and the impact caused by the attacks of the two directly hit the wall of the training room. Cracks suddenly appeared on the specially reinforced wall, like spider webs. At this time, Silver on the battlefield was entwined with a strong sense of energy. Under the influence of this energy, his silver hair was constantly flying around irregularly, his face was also extremely stiff and indifferent, and he had completely entered the state of fighting. On the opposite side, Fischer has entered the state of lightning at this time. His whole body exudes electric light, and his body flickers with electric arcs from time to time. An electric arc split out uncontrollably, directly creating a pothole the size of a wash basin on the ground near Fischer. But this pothole is not very conspicuous on the battlefield, because there are too many potholes on the battlefield, and there are potholes bigger than this one, all caused by the battle between Fischer and Silver. The two looked at each other for a moment, and then started fighting again, turning into after images and rushing towards each other. I saw two streamers flickering constantly on the field, entangled, and collided at any place on the training ground, which was almost impossible to catch with the naked eye. There were deafening roars constantly coming out of the training room, fierce battles, and powerful auras constantly impacting the training room, making this specially reinforced training room a bit crumbling, and some dust would fall from the ceiling from time to time. Grandpa, do you want them to continue? Continue. This training room will be demolished. Menchi looked at the continuous cracks on the ceiling, and asked his grandfather Gino with some concern. Yeah, if this continues, the training room will be lost. It's time for them to stop. Hearing this, Gino also noticed the abnormal shape of the ceiling, and nodded in agreement. Immediately, Gino took a deep breath, and then yelled loudly at the two people below who were never tired of it. Both of you, stop it. Chapter 24. Menchi is gone, Killua is back. The battle between Fischer and Silver came to an end with the intervention of Grandpa Gino, and the entire training room was completely scrapped. Although there is no winner, everyone in the Zoldyck family knows that Fischer can already compete with Silver in strength, and it is estimated that he is only inferior to his great-grandfather Maha and Grandpa Gino. After leaving the training room, Fischer separated Menchi from the rest of the family. Zoldyck is worthy of being an assassination family. Not only is the head of the family powerful, but the strength of the tribe is also so terrifying. Walking on the way back, Menchi felt emotional. Just now she clearly faced the strength of the Zoldyck family. Except for Menchi and Kaluto, the strength of the others is terrifying, far beyond her expectations, especially the terrifying aura on Illumi. It might as well be more than the aura she felt from Hisoka before. There's no need to be envious. You can also become stronger to this extent in the future, or even stronger, Fischer said lightly. Well, I know, I'm sure. Menchi nodded confidently. Menchi, who has acquired May cells, is full of confidence in improving his strength. By the way, what do you plan to do next? Do you want me to teach you tricks here or go to all over the world to find delicious food? Fischer nodded and then asked. Before bringing Menchi back, I thought that I would feed Menchi to improve my strength, but I didn't expect the system to come out halfway, and I signed into a special food cell for Menchi. Now Menchi has a new choice, and it's a better choice than feeding her. Feeding a Menchi by myself is just an ordinary favor promotion. Unlike myself, Menchi does not have a tenfold increase, so the speed of promotion is relatively much slower, and it cannot be quickly effective. And now that there are May cells, Menchi can rely on devouring all kinds of dreamy delicacies to improve his strength. At the same time, while looking for these delicacies, he can also fight with those monsters. The favor is also useful. It is completely killing two birds with one stone. Fischer felt that this new option was a better fit for Menchi. Of course, if Menchi is willing to stay here and rely on his own methods to improve his strength, Fischer will not mind. Well, originally it was the best choice to spar with you, Fischer, but now that I have a May cell, I have a new choice. Sure enough, I'll choose the second one. Menchi hesitated for a moment, and then gave a reply. Well, it's okay, then you can decide the next itinerary yourself. Fischer nodded in understanding. Yeah, I see. By the way, Fischer, why don't you use May cells yourself? Why do you give me such a precious thing? Menchi nodded, and then asked Fischer after hesitating for a moment. Hearing this, Fischer's eyes twitched suddenly. You think I don't want to use it? This thing is specially prepared for you by the system. I can't use it at all. If it could be used, I would have used it long ago. May cells, this kind of thing is very scary. As long as you eat delicious food, you can quickly upgrade, and you can easily increase your strength. Who would want to let go of such a good thing? However, no matter how much drama there is inside, On the surface Fischer has not revealed any telltale feat. Your strength is too weak, so I will increase your strength. Or you don't want May cells? Fischer glanced at her lightly and said, of course I want to, but Menchi shook his head quickly after hearing this, and then said, okay, you can use it well if it's given to you. Don't need mother-in-law. Seeing what Menchi wanted to say, Fischer waved his hand and interrupted, and then flashed forward quickly. Mardan, if you continue to stay here, you will almost be unable to suppress your jealousy. In the back, Menchi stared blankly at Fischer's figure who was quickly going away. After a while, Menchi burst out laughing. Thank you, Fischer. No matter what happens in the future, I will stand by your side. Don't worry, I will improve my strength as quickly as possible, and I will definitely be your right and left hand and help you. Looking at Fischer's back, Menchi shouted loudly. Menchi, who got the May cell, naturally knows how precious the May cell is. Menchi is extremely grateful to Fischer for giving him this precious treasure. Scholars die for their confidants. Menchi now has this mentality. Fischer has the heart to cultivate himself, and even gave himself this precious treasure. Naturally, Menchi is not an ungrateful person. He is very grateful for this kindness in his heart, and this kindness, Menchi decided to repay it with his whole life. The day after he sparred with Silver, Menchi left the Zoldyck family, left the dry mountain, and embarked on a journey to find food and fight monsters all over the world. And on this day, Killua brought Gun and others back to Kukalu Mountain. Once back at Mount Kukalu, Killua went straight to Fischer. As for the three of Gun, they were thrown by Killua to Gabriel, and Gabriel was asked to train the three of them. The strength of the three is too weak in Killua's point of view, and they must be strengthened. The first thing that needs to be enhanced is strength and speed. Wearing weight-bearing objects to train is the easiest way. Killua did the same before to exercise his strength and speed. Brother, I'm back. I promised to teach Mean. You can't just let it go. As soon as he returned to Kukalu Mountain, Killua went directly to Fischer and asked Fischer to teach him. He didn't mean to go to his father Silver at all. However, this is also normal. Killua is still inexplicably afraid of his father Silver, so he dare not go to him for nothing. Even if he is practicing, he will come to Fischer directly. Of course, if Fischer is not around, no matter how much he is afraid of Silver, Killua will find him in order to practice. Come back so soon? I thought you were going to play outside for a few days, Fischer said with some surprise. How can playing be compared to practicing? Okay, stop talking nonsense, teach me quickly. Killua rolled his eyes at Fischer's words. Yes, yes, yes. This will teach you. Before I teach you how to practice, let me popularize the concept of N to you. N is an ability to manipulate life energy. Chapter 25 Recruiting Kurapika. It's amazing. This is N. I feel full of strength. In Zoldyck Castle, in Fischer's separate training room, Killua was entwined with Menchi, showing a look of surprise. For Killua, Fischer did not choose to teach step by step like ordinary N practitioners, but directly used Fa to guide the chi in his body, and then taught him to control his own chi. Killua's current state is the state where he has just completed the awakening of N, and is using winding to restrain his chi. As expected of Killua, the chi just awakened is so strong. Looking at Killua in front of him, Fischer sighed slightly. I have to say that the talent of Killua is really nothing to say. If Fischer hadn't been accompanied by a plug-in, he probably wouldn't be able to compare with Killua. Okay, brother, teach me how to use N next. When Fischer sighed, Killua also understood his own situation and couldn't wait to learn the new use of N. It's not a good thing to want to fly before you learn how to walk. It's not a good thing to aim too high. Cultivate the entanglement well, let your chi be completely fixed, and don't talk about accidents. I'll give you 2 days, and come to me the day after tomorrow to practice other uses. Facing Killua's impulsiveness, Fischer couldn't help reprimanding him. This guy is too unstable. Just learning is like practicing advanced skills, and he is not afraid of breaking his teeth. Well, let me practice entanglement first. Killua also reacted to being reprimanded by Fischer, and said embarrassingly, well, you can practice here, I'll go back first. Fischer nodded, and then turned around to leave here. However, just a few steps away after turning around, Killua's voice came from behind him. Brother, can you teach Gun and them by the way? This made Fischer pause, and looked back at Killua, frowning slightly. No, can't it? Seeing Fischer frowning, Killua was slightly disappointed. He knew that his old brother was very talkative. As long as there was nothing he could not agree to, he would directly agree to his request. And once the elder brother frowns, it means that the possibility of the elder brother's rejection is very high. Apologize to Mom tomorrow, and bring them over the day after tomorrow. Fischer frowned and thought for a moment, then agreed. This made Killua slightly surprised. He didn't expect his elder brother to agree after frowning. It was really the first time. However, Killua was so surprised that Fischer also turned and left at this time. For Fischer, teaching others such a time-wasting thing is a reluctance for Fischer. Even if one is teaching and the other is training, there is no difference. However, since it was his younger brother's request, Fischer agreed after thinking for a while. It's for Killua's sake. Also, Fischer wanted to see if he could recruit Kurapika, a Kairutis survivor. Thank you, brother. Killua, who reacted immediately, put his feet on his feet, excitedly waved his hand to Fischer's back, and thanked him. Fischer didn't look back, just raised his hand lightly, and waved it casually, which was regarded as a response. 2 days passed quickly, and Killua brought Gun and others to Fischer's exclusive training room. For the 3 of them, Fischer didn't say much. According to Killua's request, he directly used the hair to open the aura nodes on the 3 of them as he taught Killua, and released the chi inside. Then he taught the 3 of them to control their chi. Among the 3, apart from Leorio, both J-Freaks and Kurapika are geniuses among geniuses. Like Killua, although Leorio is not good enough, he can barely control his chi, so there is no genius death due to excessive gas loss. Then Fischer asked Killua to supervise Gun and Leorio's practice of entanglement, and he called Kurapika away. "Arnold, Fischer, why did you call me out alone?" Kurapika asked Fischer in front of him as he walked in the spacious corridor. "I heard from Killua that your enemies are those spiders." As soon as Kurapika's words came out, Fischer also stopped, turned to look at Kurapika, and said. Hearing this, Kurapika's expression was slightly agitated. His eyes turned red unconsciously, but he soon calmed down and nodded silently. "Would you like to be my direct steward? I can give you great power, so that you can find those spiders for revenge. You should also understand that those spiders aren't, I can tell you, in charge. Among those spiders, except for a small man, none of them is weaker than those examiners, except President Netero. Based on your current situation, it will take at least several years to seek revenge from those guys. Can you wait? Your talent is very strong. After a few years of practice, can be comparable to the members of the brigade. However, even if you can defeat one of them, you cannot defeat the entire spider brigade. Once you start to take revenge spider, then you will be hunted down by spiders, and you alone cannot escape the hunted down by the entire spider brigade." Fischer sent out the invitation lightly, and stated the situation of the spiders. These words made Kurapika more silent. He also knew what Fischer said. After knowing the existence of Kurapika already had a guess in his heart. The Kuruta people are very strong. Most of the Kuruta people are experienced warriors, but they were exterminated by Phantom Troop, who had only a few people at that time. No matter how you think about it, this kind of thing is impossible. He has always been very puzzled and confused by this matter. It wasn't until he knew the existence of and felt the breath released by Illumi and Fischer in the final test, that Kurapika was convinced that most of the members of Phantom Troop should be Only the existence with this kind of supernatural ability can wipe out the Kuruta people in a group of only a few people. Fischer is right. Even if he has strong talent and cultivates quickly, it still cannot make him reach the point where he can defeat spiders in a short time. Unless he has devoted himself to cultivating for more than 10 years, he will be able to deal with the entire spider with confidence. But, ask yourself, can you bear it for such a long time? Can I really restrain the hatred in my heart all the time? The answer is impossible. I can't wait to wipe out all the spiders now. Fischer, can you really give me great strength, making me strong enough to deal with the entire Phantom Troop in a short time? Ah, I can. If not, then I will personally help you deal with Phantom Troop. Hearing this, Fischer knew that Kurapika was moved, so he promised directly. What happened to Menchi earlier let Fischer know that the system should be happy to help him cultivate members of the power. Menchi has obtained the powerful power of May cells. Once Kurapika joins his forces, the system should not be stingy with giving Kurapika powerful abilities. If not, then it's up to you to avenge Kurapika yourself. Okay, I promise you. With Fischer's assurance, Kurapika was silent for a moment, then spoke firmly and agreed. Welcome to Zoldyck, Kurapika. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.